Chapter 8, Calm and Insight, the Buddhist teachings on liberation of mind and liberation by wisdom. 8.1, Introduction. In Pali, the word samatha means calm or tranquil, but the term generally refers to the actual methods of generating tranquility and of developing a deeply concentrated mind. The purpose of samatha is to attain the meditative absorption jhana. In samatha practice, one fixes one's mind on an object, aramana, until the mind is one-pointed, which is called samadhi, concentration. When concentration is properly established, the mind enters one of the jhanas. In the four fine material jhanas, rupa jhana, or simply jhana, one uses aspects of materiality as the object of attention. More refined than these are the four formless jhanas, arupa jhana, in which one uses immaterial objects as objects of attention. Together, these jhanas are called the 8 attainments, samapatti. In jhana, the mind is happy, peaceful, and bright. There is no dullness or disturbance. The mind is free from the hindrances, nivarana. For the duration of jhana, one is said to be free from the mental defilements, kilesa. The defilements return, however, when one exits jhana. The term cessation as suppression, vikambana nirodha, and liberation as suppression, vikambana vimutti, are used for the suppression of defilement by concentration. Possible fruits of jhana are the 5 special powers, abhinna, psychic power, telepathy, recollection of past lives, divine ear, and divine eye. See note 8.1, and then that is note 8.1, higher knowledge. Translation: the term abhinna is used in different contexts. In general, it means higher knowledge, supreme knowledge. There are 6 kinds of supreme knowledge. The first 5 listed above are mundane forms of knowledge. The sixth kind, knowledge of the destruction of the taints, is transcendent. In this chapter, when referring to the first 5 kinds, I use the term special power, supernormal power, supreme power, or higher psychic attainments. In reference to all 6 kinds, I use the term supreme knowledge, supreme attainment, or direct knowledge. Back to the text. The word samatha often refers specifically to concentration, samadhi. Equating samatha with samadhi is in accord with both the Buddhadhamma and the suttas, for no matter which special powers or attainments a person reaches, the essence of tranquility meditation is concentration. Vipassana means clear insight. The term also refers to methods of cultivating wisdom in order to see the truth, to see things clearly as they are, not as one imagines them to be with a vision distorted by desire and aversion. This insight deepens until ignorance and attachment are uprooted, at which point one's impressions, perceptions, and attitudes are transformed. The knowledge that gradually increases during this practice of insight is called jnana, of which there are many levels. The final and highest knowledge is called vijja, which completely eradicates ignorance. A mind endowed with such knowledge is joyous, peaceful, and free. It escapes the clutches of defilements, which corrupt people's thoughts and actions. An awakened person is not afflicted by defilements and need not struggle against them. This knowledge is the aim of insight meditation vipassana, and it leads to true and lasting liberation. This absolute liberation is called cessation as severance. Samuchcheda nirodha, or liberance as severance. Samuchcheda vimutti. The goal of tranquility meditation is jhana. The goal of insight meditation is jnana. People can practice solely samatha meditation, wishing to enjoy the fruits of such practice, the jhanas and the supreme powers of abhinna. They may stop here, not concerning themselves with insight meditation and the development of wisdom. But a person practicing insight meditation must rely on some level of concentration. They may attain jhana first and use jhana as a basis for insight. They may practice insight first and then practice tranquility, or they may practice both forms of meditation simultaneously. Those who are called practitioners of pure insight do not practice tranquility in a direct or exclusive way. They do not attain jhana before developing insight, but they still depend on tranquility in a broad sense. They still depend on concentration. The initial concentration of someone practicing insight may be temporary, but at the point of attaining path and fruit, Magga concentration is firmly established. Attainment concentration, Apana Samadhi, reaching at least the first jhana. However extraordinary the jhanas or psychic powers may be, if they result exclusively from tranquility meditation, they are still mundane. They lie within the domain of unawakened beings. Examples of such accomplishments are the psychic powers of Venerable Devadatta, the temporary emancipation of Venerable Garhika, and the stories in the texts of monks, rishis, and lay people who attained jhana. Concentrative attainments and supernormal powers resulting from tranquility meditation were accessible before the Buddha's time. Those individuals who achieved these attainments came from other religious traditions and preceded the Buddha. For example, Alara Kalama, who reached the third formless jhana, and Udaka Ramaputta, who attained the fourth formless jhana. These attainments are not the goal of Buddhism, since they do not bring about true deliverance from suffering and defilement. There were monks of other traditions who, having attained the four jhanas, maintained wrong view and claimed that abiding in these jhanas is equivalent to nibbana, a claim the Buddha repudiated. The true purpose of tranquility meditation in Buddhism is to generate concentration to use as a basis for insight. See Note 8.2. And then Note 8.2, Tranquility for Insight. The supreme concentration is that which aids wisdom in dispelling the defilements and facilitates awakening. Technically speaking, it is a factor in the path, Magga Samadhi. This concentration has a special name, Tarika Samadhi, also spelled without the superscript. Or actually, there's three different spellings of it. Translated as following immediately. It produces immediate Arya Phala without interference. The Buddha said this concentration is peerless. Even if this concentration is of a lower level, it is still superior to all other forms of five material and immaterial jhanas. Anantarika Samadhi is mentioned in other contexts, both in the canon and the commentaries. And then it gives a whole list of references. Back to the main text. A cultivation of this insight supported by concentration leads to the final goal of Buddhism. Someone with the special quality of reaching this highest goal and being endowed with the exceptional fruits of tranquility meditation will be admired and revered, but someone who has attained only the fruits of insight is still superior to someone who has attained jhanas and psychic powers, yet remains unawakened. The concentration of non-returners who have not achieved the 8 jhanas or the 5 supreme powers of Hinya is still considered complete. It is secure and steadfast, since no defilements exist to erode or disturb it. This is not true of those who attain jhana or psychic powers, but do not cultivate insight or attain path and fruit, Magga. Although their level of concentration may be exceptional, there is no guarantee of its stability. They are still susceptible to being overwhelmed by defilement. Even the concentration of stream enterers and once returners can be disturbed and weakened by sensual lust. Their samadhi is therefore still considered incomplete. The subject of calm and insight is connected to the deliverance by wisdom and deliverance of mind, discussed below.
8.2, Liberation of Mind and Liberation by Wisdom. Note the difference between Chitta Vimutti and Pana Vimutti, which are states of mind, and Buddhadhamma Vimutti and Panya Vimutti, who are individuals. Earlier, liberation Vimutti was mentioned as a synonym for Nibbana, and also discussed in the sections on the attributes of awakened beings. Here we will examine the term vimutti more closely. In the commentaries, the term vimutti in its highest sense has three distinct definitions. Number one, vimutti as the path, magga, the act of liberation, the existing conditions at the moment of liberation. Number two, vimutti as fruition, phala, the freedom resulting from liberation, the result of being a liberated person. And number three, vimutti as equivalent to nibbana, the state of a liberated person, the nature of freedom reached and experienced by a liberated person, providing such blessings as happiness, ease, contentment, and peace. The liberation unawakened people determine as an object of contemplation and set as a goal. Of these three definitions, the second one of vimutti as fruition is the most specific and pertains to the essential meaning of liberation. It refers here most often to the fruition of arhatship, when one abandons all 10 fetters, samyojana, and is released from all mental taints, asava. In the definition of vimutti as the path, there are additional agents, especially true knowledge, vijja, and dispassion, viraga, which are often paired with liberation. In such cases, vijja or viraga are defined as the path, while vimutti constitutes the fruit. In the third definition, vimutti is a synonym for nibbana. See Note 8.3. Note 8.3, vimutti. These explanations accord with the commentarial definitions. Vimutti as path and fruit, for example, a list of references. Vimutti as fruition and nibbana, another list of references. Vimutti as arahata, phala, another list of examples. Vimutti paired with vijja, quoted earlier in the section on the attributes of enlightened beings. And for example, more references in the Pali Canon, the references. And there are many occurrences of vimutti paired with viraga in the phrase viraga vimukati. For example, SIII 189 and SIV 2. For additional examples, see, for example, PS2 140, SAII 268. Back to the main text. Vimutti as fruition, especially as the fruit of arhatship, is divided into two kinds, citta vimutti and panna vimutti. Citta vimutti is translated as liberation of the mind. It is the liberation made possible through the strength of concentration. It is the state of a concentrated mind which quells passion and is free from the bonds of defilement. Panya vimutti is translated as liberation through wisdom, but can equally be translated as liberation of wisdom, since it refers to the wisdom of an arhat that is purified and perfected. This wisdom dispels ignorance and frees a person from defilement. Liberation of mind is achieved by abandoning lust. Liberation by wisdom is achieved by abandoning ignorance. AI 61, PSII 99. The commentaries define citta vimutti as the concentration, samadhi, which is the fruit of arhatship. And they define panya vimutti as the wisdom and knowledge, which is the fruit of arhatship. All persons who have attained arhatship have completed these two kinds of liberation. In passages referring to the attainment of arhatship, these two terms therefore always exist as a pair. For example, with the destruction of the taints, one realizes for oneself with direct knowledge, here and now, the deliverance of mind and deliverance by wisdom that are taintless. And there's a long list of references for that. Just give one example, DI 156, 167. Citta vimutti is the fruit of tranquility. Panya vimutti is the fruit of insight. The commentaries assert that the appearance of those two terms as a pair indicate that tranquility and insight must be combined, both at the level of fruit, phala, and path, magga. Tranquility, samatha here, can be taken in a broad sense as a required level of concentration. It need not refer to the deeper levels of concentration resulting in the higher psychic attainments. Two things pertain to supreme knowledge. What two? Serenity and insight. When serenity is developed, what benefit does it bring? The mind is developed. When the mind is developed, what benefit does it bring? Lust is abandoned. When insight is developed, what benefit does it bring? wisdom is developed. When wisdom is developed, what benefit does it bring? Ignorance is abandoned. A mind defiled by lust is not liberated, and wisdom defiled by ignorance is not developed. Thus, monks, through the removal of lust, there is liberation of mind, and through the removal of ignorance, there is liberation by wisdom. AI 61, and it says, see note 8.4. Note 8.4, Citta Vimutti and Panya Vimutti. In the Pali Canon, the attainment of Citta Vimutti and Panya Vimutti is used as a definition for arhatship, for example, SV 406. This is evidence that all arhats attain both of these kinds of liberation. When these terms are used as a pair to refer to arhats, they're always preceded by the term anasava, free from the taints. The passage at AII 87 mentions arhats who have attained Citta Vimutti and Panya Vimutti, but have not attained the 8 Vimokkha, Jhana Samapatti and Nirodha Samapatti. This passage confirms that the Citta Vimutti of an arhat refers to a necessary degree of concentration in supporting wisdom in the eradication of the taints. It is not the Citta Vimutti discussed below that refers to the 8 concentrative attainments, Jhana Samapatti. The commentaries define samatha as chittakagata, one-pointedness, samadhi, and define vipassana as knowledge that reflects on conditioned phenomena, AAII 119. Back to the main text. Liberation is complete with the attainment of both Citta Vimutti and Panya Vimutti. It is possible to only practice tranquility, and this practice can lead to the higher concentrative attainments in which the defilements are suppressed. This is one kind of liberation, albeit a temporary one. In order to reach true liberation, however, a person practicing tranquility must also integrate insight meditation. The term Citta Vimutti can be used in context apart from the realization of path and fruit, although in these contexts the liberation of the mind is not absolute. The decisive factor is therefore Panya Vimutti, which gradually eliminates ignorance and eradicates the defilements. True lasting liberation comes with Panya Vimutti. The term nasava, taintless, is used in conjunction with these two terms to emphasize perfect liberation. The term Citta Vimutti is used as a pair with Panya Vimutti simply to show that a high level of concentration is required to prepare the mind for liberation by wisdom. Panya Vimutti is only used in the context of complete liberation and is always accompanied by the term Citta Vimutti. Citta Vimutti can be used in other contexts. If it refers to the decisive liberation of path and fruit from stream entry upwards, then it is paired with Panya Vimutti. Otherwise, it must be accompanied by a qualifying adjective clearly indicating a stage of definite awakening. For example, akupa, unshakable, or asamaya, lasting. When found alone or accompanied by other terms, then it does not refer to complete liberation. Because of the similarity of terms, the division of arhats into one liberated by wisdom, panavimutta, and one liberated both ways, Buddhaghosacariya, gives the impression that the former refers to someone who has solely attained liberation by wisdom, Panavamutti. In fact, the attainment of Panavamutti necessarily includes the attainment of Citta Vimutti in the sense that a person relies on a refined degree of concentration to attain liberation by wisdom. In this case, concentration does not need to be highlighted. Even someone who solely practices insight, sukha vipassaka, depends on tranquility meditation to develop a required degree of concentration. In the case of one liberated both ways, liberation of the mind, Citta Vimutti, is emphasized. The reason for this emphasis is because the kind of Citta Vimutti referred to here is exceptional. Of the 8 Vimokkha, or the higher attainments of jhana. As mentioned above, the term vimutti is used in many different contexts. The term citta vimutti, when referring to levels of liberation that are not yet transcendent, is most often used on its own. In this case, it suggests a liberation that is not absolute. Inferior kinds of liberation generally occur through the power of concentration. Later texts also use the term vimokkha when referring to non-transcendent liberation. The original text reserve a unique definition for vimokkha as explained in the chapter on awakened beings. Whichever term is used, vimutti, citta vimutti, or vimokkha, it is usually accompanied by a qualifying adjective to clarify the context. For example, samayika vimutti, samayika citta vimutti, samayika vimokkha, all meaning temporary liberation. Apamana citta vimutti, boundless liberation. Or santa citta vimutti, peaceful liberation. Replacing the qualifying adjectives of inferior levels of liberation with adjectives of an opposite meaning denotes a supreme form of liberation. For example, by replacing samayika with asamaya. Vimutti in a general sense, can thus be divided into two kinds, as absolute and non-absolute. When referring to its highest meaning, the word vimutti is preceded by one of the following qualified adjectives to make it clear that the reference is to the absolute, transcendent liberation, akupa vimutti, and akupa citta vimutti, unshakable liberation, non-degenerative liberation, or a samaya vimutti and a samayika citta vimutti, lasting liberation, timeless liberation. All these refer to noble fruition, arya phala, especially to the fruit of arhatship. And since the term citta vimutti on its own never refers to absolute liberation, the terms akupa and asamayika are added to indicate a liberation of mind that is absolute, not subject to decay, and necessarily accompanied by liberation by wisdom. Another transcendent form of citta vimutti accessible to awakened beings is the signless liberation of mind, animitta citta vimutti, which is known as fruition attainment, phala samapatti. This is reached when stream enterers, once returners, and non-returners, and arhats wish to abide at ease and enter a state of concentration, experiencing the rasa, flavor, quality of their realization. This state of liberation is an abiding at ease in the present, Buddhadhamma sukha vihara, and a noble transcendent bliss, Ariyalakutara sukha. It is called signless liberation of mind because it is a freedom of mind wherein the person takes no notice of signs and features belonging to conditioned phenomena, i.e. to form, feeling, perception, volitional formation, and consciousness, and only focuses on nibbana, has nibbana as the object of awareness. The many lesser mundane levels of liberation are included in the term citta vimutti when this term occurs on its own. Alternately, the term samayika citta vimutti, equivalent to samayika vimutti and samaya vimutti, all meaning temporary liberation, is used. The word adimutti, intent upon, absorbed in, is often used to describe these lesser levels of liberation, or else adamutti is used as a synonym for the above terms. See note 8.5. Adimutti refers to being absorbed in an object to the extent that one is freed from disturbances and defilements for as long as one abides in that state. For example, one is freed from the hindrances, nirvana, when absorbed in, nivarana when absorbed in jhana. Okay, we'll go to note 8.5 now. Note 8.5, reflecting on nibbana. This definition of vimutti is equivalent to adhimutti, can be used in regard to nibbana in the sense of intent upon or reflecting upon nibbana, and can be used in reference to both unenlightened and enlightened beings, even to arhats. For example, SI 154, and then another line of references. The Abhidhamma gives two definitions for vimutti: concentrative absorption, chittasa, adimutti, and nibbana, DHS 234. The commentaries explain that concentrative absorption refers to the 8 samapatti, since one is absorbed in the object of meditation and free from harmful mental states, DHSA 409. At NDII 41, the definition is broadened to include being intent upon forms, sounds, smells, tastes, fame, happiness, robes, alms food, the discipline, the suttas, the Abhidhamma, etc., e.g. rupa, dhamutta, chitta, rad, himutta, vinayadimutta. Compare the dual description of vimutti at PSII 145-6. Okay, back to the main text now. The standard definition for temporary liberation, samayika cettovimutti, equates this liberation with the 8 mundane attainments, samapatti, the 4 fine material and the 4 immaterial jhanas. The concentrative attainments of unawakened persons are confined to these 8. In order to specify that the deliverance of mind here refers to the 8 attainments, the word santa, peaceful, refined, is occasionally added as santa cettovimutti. Temporary liberation, cettovimutti, samayika cettovimutti, vimutti or samayika vimutti, can also have a very broad definition, referring to absorption into any object of faith, inspiration, or delight. This kind of liberation accompanies a mind that is intensely focused on an object. This focus generates strength, courage, and perseverance. It is the incipient stage in a natural process, idipachayata or pata cha samupada, that leads on to joy, tranquility, and concentration. It is called liberation because it is an escape from conflicting and bothersome mental qualities, panikadhamma, mental adversaries, such as doubt, discouragement, mental sluggishness, and fear. These mental qualities are suppressed as long as the conditions supporting liberation are maintained, as long as the mental strength generated by inspiration remains. The texts even classify the aspiration to live in the forest or the joy that arises when listening to a Dhamma talk as this kind of liberation of mind. Aspects of this kind of liberation, however, can also give rise to unwholesome mental states. There are names for specific kinds of temporary liberation, samayik and cettovimutti, depending on the object on which the mind is focused. The temporary liberation of mind that is most often mentioned and encouraged is called boundless liberation, apamana cettovimutti or apamana cettovimutti. Here one develops concentration by radiating the qualities of loving kindness, metta, compassion, karuna, appreciative joy, mudita, and equanimity, upekkha, in all directions, with a mind that is unbounded and immeasurable, until the mind is absorbed in these wholesome states and enters jhana. The mind is then freed from the 5 hindrances and from the unwholesome qualities that are antagonistic to the 4 qualities listed above: the liberation of loving kindness, metta, Metta Chitta Vimutti is free from ill will. The liberation of compassion, Karuna Chitta Vimutti, is free from hostility. The liberation of appreciative joy, Mudita Chitta Vimutti, is free from jealousy. And the liberation of equanimity, Upekkha Chitta Vimutti, is free from lust. Other kinds of temporary liberation of mind, which occur in the scriptures, only rarely include Sunnata Chitta Vimutti, liberation of mind stemming from the insight that all conditioned phenomena are empty of self and empty of anything related to self. Attanaya, Kinkana Chitta Vimutti, the immaterial jhana directed upon the sphere of nothingness. And Mahagata Chitta Vimutti, while in jhana, radiating the mind, engage with the kasina meditation object over however large an area or domain as one chooses. Drawing upon the above material, it is fair to say that any devotion to an ideal or object of faith, for example, to a supreme deity, is a kind of absorption and can be included in the broad definition of Chitta Vimutti. Some people claim that abiding in jhana is nibbana, or claim that extinction of perception and feeling, Sanya Vedayita Nirodha or Nirodha Samapata, is the highest concentrative attainment, is nibbana. The highest concentrative attainment is nibbana. In fact, these concentrative attainments are used as instruments to attain arhatship. They prepare the mind and make it suitable for awakening. These attainments, along with their material and immaterial properties, are conditioned phenomena which are reflected upon by Dhamma practitioners with insight and wisdom to give rise to true knowledge, vijja. Arhats use these concentrative attainments for rest and to experience happiness, and these attainments are thus called abiding at ease in the present, Buddhadhamma Sukha Vihara, divine abidings, Dibba Vihara, and gradually ascending abidings, Anupubha Vihara. These states, however, are not nibbana. They are means by which nibbana can be realized, and they are easeful abidings for those who have already realized nibbana. Indeed, the realization of nibbana facilitates the attainment of these concentrative states and allows a person to benefit greatly from them. For example, a person who has attained the 8 jhanas will have the necessary concentration and wisdom to reach the attainment of cessation, Nirodha Samapata, when they realize the state of non-returner or arhatship. A person who has not yet realized arhatship still has a degree of attachment to fine material and immaterial existence, and they may still be fascinated or attached to concentrative attainments. Although jhanas are excellent, Buddha considers attachments to jhana a weakness. Indeed, such attachment can be an obstacle for realizing nibbana. The Buddha said that if a monk attains the highest immaterial jhana, nayatana, but indulges in the feelings of this state, he will not be able to realize nibbana because there is still clinging, upadana. Clinging to such a refined state, the Buddha called superior clinging, upadana setta, see note 8.6. Arhats make use of jhana to dwell at ease, but without any attachment. So note 8.6, a state considered excellent. MII 265. The commentaries explain upadana setta here as a state considered excellent, i.e. a higher realm in which to be reborn. But the explanation above is consistent with the etymology and the context. See MAIV 67. The Buddha said of someone with exceptional qualities, for example, he is wealthy, famous, learned, a preacher of Dhamma, a follower of ascetic practices, a forest dweller, a refuse rag wearer, a tree root dweller, or an attainer of any of the 8 jhanas, he becomes arrogant and looks down on others, then this person is an inferior person. Sapurisa Sutta MIII 37-45. The teaching at AII 27-8 states that a bhikkhu in the noble lineage is content with his robes, alms, foods, and dwelling, and delights in meditation, but does not use his virtues to praise himself or to intimidate others. Back to the main text. Proof that jhanas all the way up to attainment of cessation are not nibbana is the fact that arhats, who are those liberated by wisdom, panavamutti, have not attained the immaterial jhanas and are unable to enter the attainment of cessation. From the Pali Canon, we can deduce that at the time of the Buddha, there were more panavamutta than abhattabhanga vamutta. For example, at a large gathering of monks, the Buddha told Venerable Sariputta, of these 500 bhikkhus, Sariputta, 60 bhikkhus are triple knowledge bearers, vajjiya. 60 bhikkhus are bearers of the 6 direct knowledges, chalahina. 60 bhikkhus are liberated in both ways, while the rest, 320, are liberated by wisdom. SI 191. Liberated by wisdom, panavamutti, is decisive and is equivalent to attaining nibbana. This kind of liberation transforms liberation of mind, chittavamutti, which may have been achieved long before and repeatedly accessed in the past, or else it arises simultaneously with panavimutti into unshakable liberation of mind, akupa chittavamutti, since the taints have now been eliminated. So here I'm going to read what the footnote on what a triple knowledge bearer is. Note 42. It says, triple knowledge bearers, Vijja, refers to those individuals who have realized the threefold knowledge, Vijja, recollection of past lives, Pube in Evasanu Sati Jnana, knowledge of the decease and rebirth of beings according to their karma, Kutupapata Jnana, and knowledge of the truth resulting in the destruction of the taints, Asavakaya Jnana. Okay, back to the main text. Awakened persons derive the maximum benefit from chittavamutti without harming themselves or others. They do not indulge in these attainments, nor do they use the fruits of concentration, the mundane psychic powers, in a misguided way for self-gratification. Here, liberation of mind and liberation by wisdom exist as a pair, as is frequently mentioned in the text. The deliverance of mind and deliverance by wisdom, wherein those evil, unwholesome states cease without remainder. The Buddha says that this unshakable liberation of mind, chittavamutti, combined with panavamutti, is the essence and goal of Buddhism. When he is diligent, he attains permanent liberation, samayavamutti, and it is impossible for that bhikkhu to fall away from that permanent liberation. So this holy life, Brahman, does not have gain, honor, and fame for its benefit, or the attainment of virtue for its benefit, or the attainment of concentration for its benefit, or knowledge and vision for its benefit, but it is this unshakable deliverance of mind that is the goal of this holy life, its heartwood and its end. MI 197.
There are 3 factors leading to the decline of temporary liberation of mind. Samaya chittavamutti. First are the defilements, kilesa, which have not yet been completely eliminated. They may have been suppressed or subdued, but they lie in wait and are aroused when the positive conditions like faith awaken. Second are the supportive conditions like faith, enthusiasm, contentment, and determination. When these conditions fade or weaken, liberation of mind also declines. These supportive conditions may even fade for good reason. A person may at one time have strong faith in something and be greatly devoted, but later realize that the faith is not grounded in wisdom, and the object of faith is unworthy of such devotion. Third are environmental factors, which include a person's health and external conditions like poverty or famine. In spiritual practice, these 3 factors are linked. For example, due to some difficulty, a person will lose heart, confusion, irritation, and discouragement will arise, and liberation of mind will vanish. There are some interesting stories in the Pali Canon of how liberation of mind can be affected. Venerable Godhika was diligent and resolute, and he reached temporary liberation of mind. Samayika chittavamutti, the mundane, concentrative attainments, but due to the torment of chronic illness, he fell away from this liberation of mind. A second and third time he reached temporary liberation of mind and fell away from it. This happened 6 times.
When he reached temporary liberation of mind the 7th time, he thought that he would surely fall away from it as before. He considered that it would be better to die while in the state of liberation than die after falling away from it. He thus used a knife to kill himself, but as he was lying on his bed in pain, he established mindfulness and reflected on the feelings Vedana arising. While meditating in this way, he achieved arhatship before attaining final nibbana. Another passage describes the ascetics and Brahmins who went into the forest living on fruits and berries, thinking that if they were to get caught up in sensuality, they would become intoxicated and fall under the spell of Mara. When food was scarce and they became thin and weak, their determination and enthusiasm slackened, and they returned to the wider world to enjoy sense pleasures. The commentaries sorted the many definitions of vimutti into 5 groups, following the same model that they used for sorting the definitions of cessation, nirodha. These 5 groups act as a useful summary, as they contain the essence of all the definitions presented so far. Number 1, Vihamhana vimutti, liberation through the suppression of defilements, the suppression of the 5 hindrances through the power of concentration. This refers to the 8 attainments, samapati, the 4 fine material and the 4 immaterial jhanas, and sometimes includes access concentration, upakara samadhi. Number 2, tadanga vimutti, liberation by way of specific qualities, to be freed from unwholesome qualities by the substitution of opposite qualities. Technically speaking, it is the freedom from wrong views and attachments through the application of insight or knowledge. For example, focusing on impermanence frees one from the belief in permanence. It can also be used, however, in reference to general matters of virtue and ethics. For example, a devotion to generosity frees one from stinginess and greed. A commitment to loving kindness frees one from ill will and negativity, and a dedication to compassion and non-violence frees one from violence and cruelty. These first 2 kinds of liberation cover the meaning of temporary liberation, samayika, citta vimutti, and are mundane. Number 3, samucheda vimutti, the cutting off of the defilements, liberation through final knowledge, vimutti as the path, magga. Number 4, patipassadi vimutti, the utter removal and stilling of defilements, vimutti as the fruit, phala. And number 5, nissarana vimutti, the state of deliverance, complete liberation leading to supreme joy and unhindered engagement with the world, vimutti as nibbana. These final 3 kinds of liberation are defined as permanent liberation, samayika citta vimutti, and are transcendent. Essentially, these 5 kinds of liberation are equivalent to samatha, vipassana, magga, phala, and nibbana, respectively. 8.3, important principles on the realization of nibbana. The following questions are often debated amongst Buddhist scholars and practitioners. Can someone who only practices insight meditation, vipassana, attain arhatship without practicing tranquility meditation, samatha? Is it necessary to attain jhana before attaining nibbana? To achieve the 6 kinds of higher psychic attainments, abhinna, is it sufficient to have attained the 4th jhana, or must one have also attained the formless jhanas, i.e., the 8 samapati, to attain the knowledge of the destruction of the taints, asavakaya nana, and realize nibbana? Must one have previously attained the reminiscence of past lives and the knowledge of the decease and rebirth of beings? While in jhana, can one practice insight and contemplate conditioned phenomena, or must one first emerge from jhana? Is it possible to develop samatha further and achieve concentrative attainments, jhana samapati, after attaining path and fruit, magga phala? Some of these questions involve key aspects of realizing nibbana,
Some are only tangentially related, and some have already been discussed at length, especially the question on whether a person can attain nibbana by solely practicing insight meditation. This section will focus on those questions which are directly related to realization, drawing upon evidence from the scriptures. General aspects of realization. I declare, O monks, that the destruction of the taints occurs in dependence on the first jhana, or the second jhana, or the third jhana, or the fourth jhana, in dependence on the base of the infinity of space, or the base of the infinity of consciousness, or the base of nothingness, or the base of neither perception or non-perception, or in dependence on the cessation of perception and feeling. Jhana Sutta at AIV 422-3. This sutta and 3 other suttas describe the way to use each stage of concentrated attainment for reflection and to gain insight into the true nature of conditioned phenomena. The above sutta continues. When it is said, I declare, O monks, that the destruction of the taints occurs in dependence on the first jhana, for what reason is that said? Here, ... a monk enters and dwells in the first jhana, ... Whatever states are included there, comprised by form, feeling, perception, volitional formations, or consciousness, he views those states as impermanent, as subject to stress, ... as empty, as non-self. Having viewed them thus, his mind then turns away from those states and focuses upon the deathless element. This is peaceful, this is sublime, that is ... nibbana. If he sustains the first jhana, he attains the destruction of the taints. But if he does not attain the destruction of the taints because of delight in the Dhamma, then ... he is due to be spontaneously reborn in the celestial realm, Buddhavasa, and there attain final nibbana without ever returning from that world. From here, the sutta describes a similar process of cultivating insight to reach the destruction of the taints for each of the concentrative levels all the way up to the sphere of nothingness. The Mahamalunkaya Sutta has less detail but describes the contemplation of the 3 characteristics in reference to the 5 aggregates and each of the jhanas up to the sphere of nothingness, resulting in the destruction of the taints. The Atta, Kang, Gara, and Dasama suttas have a slight variation. A monk enters and abides in the first jhana, ... He considers this and understands it thus. This first jhana is conditioned and volitionally produced. But whatever is conditioned and volitionally produced is impermanent, subject to cessation. Sustaining that first jhana, he attains the destruction of the taints. In these suttas, the liberations of mind through loving kindness, compassion, appreciative joy, and equanimity are inserted between the fine material jhanas and the formless jhanas, adding 4 more concentrated attainments for contemplation. These 4 suttas contain essentially the same information. They differ only in minor details. They describe the development of insight in jhana, from the first jhana to the sphere of nothingness, ending in the destruction of the taints. The Jhana Sutta, however, adds a summary. Thus, monks, there is penetration to final knowledge, Anapata Veda, as far as meditative attainments accompanied by perception, Sanya Samapati, reach. AIV 426. This means that in jhana, from the sphere of nothingness and below, there is perception among with other accompanying aggregates, which can be applied for contemplation and supports insight for the realization of the destruction of the taints. In the sphere of neither perception nor non-perception, perception is too refined and cannot be applied for contemplation. This holds even more true in the extinction of perception and feeling, Sanya Vedayita Nirodha. Therefore, these 2 attainments are not attainments accompanied by perception, Sanya Samapati. If this is so, how is it possible to attain the destruction of the taints while in the sphere of neither perception or non-perception and in the extinction of perception and feeling? The answer is that one must first exit these highest levels of concentrative attainment and then apply wisdom to contemplate conditioned phenomena and reach the destruction of the taints. The Anupada Sutta contains a passage concerning the sphere of neither perception or non-perception. Again, monks, by completely surmounting the base of nothingness, Sariputta entered upon and abided in the base of neither perception or non-perception. He emerged mindful from that attainment. Having done so, he contemplated the past states which had ceased and changed thus. So indeed, these states, not having been, come into being, having been, they vanish. MIII 28. Compare this with the destruction of contemplating conditioned phenomena while in the sphere of nothingness and while in the lower jhanas, in which there is no mention of exiting the absorption. For example, in the above sutta it says, again, bhikkhus, by completely surmounting the base of infinite consciousness, aware that there is nothing, Sariputta entered upon and abided in the base of nothingness. And the states in that base of nothingness, the perception of the base of nothingness, and the unification of mind, the contact, feeling, perception, volition, and consciousness, the zeal, determination, energy, mindfulness, equanimity, and attention, these states were known to him one by one as they occurred, known to him. Those states arose, known they were present, known they disappeared. He understood thus. So indeed, these states, not having been, come into being, having been, they vanish. The Kulanidisa, a secondary text, explains the contemplation of the sphere of neither perception or non-perception in a similar way to the Majjhima Nikaya above. He entered upon and abided in the base of neither perception nor non-perception. Having emerged from that attainment, he regarded, examined, reflected upon, and investigated the mind and the mental constituents arising in that attainment as impermanent, ... subject to stress, ... not self, ... not free. ND II 23. An examination of the original text, SN 205-6, however, reveals that the phrase base of neither perception or non-perception here is an error. It should read sphere of nothingness as confirmed by the commentaries. In DA 30, SNAII 593. The secondary and later texts ordinarily describe the contemplation of conditioned phenomena and the development of insight after emerging from concentrative attainments, irrespective of how high or low these attainments are. Similar explanations are given in reference to the extinction of perception and feeling. Sanya Vedayita Nirodha, having emerged from this attainment, a person contemplates the fine material qualities of this state, contemplates the qualities in the preceding state of neither perception or non-perception, or contemplates all conditioned phenomena to understand the truth and reach the destruction of the taints. In a similar fashion, one can contemplate conditioned phenomena or the mental constituents of jhana after emerging from each of the jhanas, from the sphere of nothingness down to the first jhana. The passages above are provided, however, to prove that it is also possible to develop insight while abiding in these states of jhana without first emerging from them. Only with the two highest concentrative attainments of neither perception or non-perception and the extinction of perception and feeling must one first exit in order to develop insight. The commentaries refer to one who practices in this way as one who uses tranquility as a vehicle, samatha yanika. Such a practitioner practices tranquility until reaching jhana, at which point he or she develops insight. This is the first way of practice in a group of 4, which is mentioned in the scriptures. Number 1, the practice of insight preceded by tranquility. And I'm going to skip reading the whole long Pali words here, the technical Pali term for it. Number 2, the practice of tranquility preceded by insight. Number 3, the practice of tranquility and insight in association. And number 4, the way of practice when the mind is distorted or misled by an excitement or agitation in regards to the Dhamma. Here one has the misapprehension that the intermediate results of one's practice constitute path, fruit, and nibbana. These 4 ways of practice are a summary of the 4 pathways Magga described by Venerable Ananda. Friends, whatever bhikkhu or bhikkhuni has declared the attainments of arhatship in my presence has done so by these 4 paths, or by a certain one among them. What for? Here, friends, a monk develops insight preceded by tranquility. While he develops insight preceded by tranquility, the path arises in him. He now pursues, develops, and cultivates that path, and while he is doing so, the fetters are abandoned and the underlying tendencies are uprooted. Again, friends, a monk develops tranquility preceded by insight. He develops tranquility preceded by insight. The path arises in him. He now pursues, develops, and cultivates that path, and the underlying tendencies are uprooted. Again, friends, a monk develops tranquility and insight in tandem. The path arises in him. He now pursues, develops, and cultivates that path, and the underlying tendencies are uprooted. Or again, friends, a monk's mind is seized by agitation caused by higher states of mind. But there comes a time when his mind becomes internally steady, composed, unified, and concentrated. Then the path arises in him. He now pursues, develops, and cultivates that path, and the underlying tendencies are uprooted. AII 157.8, PSII 92, and then referred to at VSMT, really, really long Pali words, 2 of them, compounded. Insight preceded by tranquility. The Pati Samhigdhammaga defines this thus. Initially, the mind is one-pointed, steady, and concentrated. This concentration can arise from any of these causes: the power of renunciation, Nikkama, the power of freedom from ill will, Abhyapada, the perception of light, Aloka Sanya, which combats drowsiness, an absence of restlessness, Avikhipa, reflection on aspects of Dhamma, Dhammavathana, which dispels doubt, knowledge, jnana, joy, pamoja. The first jhana, the second jhana, the third jhana, the fourth jhana, the sphere of infinity of space, the sphere of infinity of consciousness, the sphere of nothingness, the sphere of neither perception nor non-perception, the 10 kasina meditations, the meditation on the 10 reflections, Anusati, meditation on the 10 stages of decay, Asubha, and meditation on the 32 aspects of mindfulness of breathing. Concentration is followed by wisdom, which discerns all the attributes of the different stages of concentration as impermanent, subject to stress, dukkha, and non-self. The commentaries present a simpler explanation for this first way of practice. A person develops concentration, either access concentration or attainment concentration. He then reflects on that level of concentration, along with accompanying mental factors as impermanent, etc., until there is noble path attainment, Arya Magga. Tranquility preceded by insight. The Patisamhidhammaga explains, initially, a person uses insight to see things as impermanent, subject to stress and non-self. Then he lets go of all the qualities manifest during insight meditation, and this letting go becomes the new object of meditation. The mind then becomes one-pointed and concentrated. The commentaries elaborate. Person has not yet generated tranquility, but he or she discerns the universal characteristics, impermanence, etc., in the 5 aggregates of clinging, upadana kanda. When insight vipassana is complete, letting go of all factors of insight becomes the object of meditation, and the mind becomes one-pointed and concentrated. This leads to path attainment, See Note 8.7. I'll go to that now. Note 8.7, Tranquility or Insight. See MAI 108. And there are several other references. Mentions those who have tranquility but no insight, and those who have insight but no tranquility. These attainments are called Cetto, Samatha, and Abhipanadhamma Vipassana, respectively. III 116 explains these as attainment concentration, Appana Samadhi, and insight, contemplating conditioned phenomena. This passage from the Anguttara Nikaya reveals that gaining insight does not inevitably give rise to tranquility. Or, as the commentaries say, although one gains insight, one may not reach the desired level of concentration, i.e. jhana. One is encouraged in this case to make more effort practicing samatha. This passage also reveals the encouragement to practice tranquility and insight as a pair in order to eliminate the taints at a later stage. CF AV 99, AIV 360 to 361. The identical passage occurs at PUG 7.8, 7 to 8, 61 to 2. The Abhidhamma gives a lofty definition of these terms, explaining Citta Samadhi as the fine material and immaterial attainments, and Adhipanadhamma Vipassana as path and fruit. PANCHA 244. From this explanation, one who attains tranquility but not insight is an unenlightened person who has attained the 8 jhanas, while someone who attains insight but not tranquility is a noble disciple who is a pure insight practitioner. Someone who has attained neither is an ordinary, unawakened person. Back to the main text. The commentaries say that whichever of these two ways of practice a person follows, tranquility preceded by insight or insight preceded by tranquility, tranquility and insight must always arise side by side at the moment of noble path attainment. This is so because samatha and vipassana are essentially equivalent to the 8 factors of the noble path. Vipassana equals right view, samaditi and right intention, sama sankappa, and samatha comprises all the remaining 6 factors. These 8 factors arise naturally together at the moment of attaining the noble realm, Arya Bhumi. See Note 8.8. Note 8.8, Path Knowledge, Samatha Vipassana, and the factors of the path. See PSA I 195, VBHA 120, VSMT, and these are Indriya Kanidesavana Kama Ikavidivna Nichaya Kathavanana. Sorry about that, it's really long polywords here. The 8 factors of the path arising simultaneously at the moment of path knowledge, Magga-jnana, and then there's 3 more references there. In fact, the 37 factors of enlightenment, Bodhipakkhiyandhamma, arise simultaneously in the mind at the moment of path knowledge. Note that this interpretation of the factors of the path or of enlightenment arising simultaneously comes from the Abhidhamma, which states that the 37 factors are mental constituents, citasika, arising in a single mind moment. The number of path factors or enlightenment factors present at the moment of path knowledge can also be reduced depending on the kind of knowledge accompanying that particular stage of the path. And then it gives a list of references. Back to the main text, the next category, tranquility and insight in tandem. The Patisamhidamagga explains, a person develops tranquility and insight in tandem in 16 ways. One of these ways is that the practice of samatha and the practice of vipassana lead to an identical object of meditation, aramana. For example, when one abandons restlessness, udhacha, the mind becomes concentrated and cessation, nirodha, becomes the object of awareness. At the same time, by abandoning ignorance, insight arises and cessation becomes the object of awareness. In this way, tranquility and insight work together on an equal basis. Some commentarial passages claim that although there is cooperation between tranquility and insight, this does not mean that samatha and vipassana arise simultaneously, since it is not possible to contemplate conditioned phenomena while the mind is one-pointed in jhana. These passages state that these two ways of meditation act as a pair insofar that insight follows on from a person's level of concentrative attainment, and equally, the next level of concentrative attainment relies on one's previous level of insight. A person enters first jhana, exits first jhana, contemplates the conditioned nature of first jhana, enters second jhana, exits second jhana, contemplates the conditioned nature of second jhana, enters third jhana, etc., until he exits from and contemplates the conditioned nature of the sphere of neither perception or non-perception. An important example of this explanation is the account of Venerable Sariputta, who developed tranquility and insight in tandem from the first jhana to the attainment of path and fruit of arhatship, the way of practice when the mind is misled by higher states of mind. The Dhamaga explains, when a person reflects on the three characteristics in reference to the five aggregates, the following mind states may arise: radiance, apasa, knowledge, jnana, bliss, piti; serenity, passaddhi; joy, sukha; determination, adhimokkha; balanced effort, pagaha; careful attention, upadhana; equanimity, upekkha; and devotion, nikanti. The practitioner here believes that the radiance, for example, is a higher state of mind. He believes he has attained path fruition, or nibbana. Thinking this way causes restlessness, and these 10 states of mind are not seen as they really are, as impermanent subject to stress and not self. Wise discernment of these 10 mind states causing the mind to waver leads to a settled, clear, and concentrated mind. With this wisdom, one is not carried away by these mind states. The heart will be pure and still, and one's meditation will neither be misguided nor impaired. The path can subsequently arise. The commentaries refer to these higher states of mind as the 10 impurities of insight. Vipassanupakilesa, see note 8.9, which arise in people whose insight practice is still weak. Taruna Vipassana. So note 8.9, the 10 impurities of insight. The 10 impurities of insight, Vipassanupakilesa. Number 1, apasa, a beautiful radiance previously unknown. Number 2, jnana, a penetrating knowledge, a feeling that one can contemplate everything without obstruction. Number 3, piti, bliss through contentment. 4, passaddhi, serenity, the mind and body feel exceedingly tranquil, light, agile, and bright, an absence of agitation, heaviness, and discomfort. 5, sukha, an exceptional, refined happiness pervades the body and mind. Number 6, adhimokkha, a tremendous faith that accompanies insight and fills the mind with joy. Number 7, bhagaha, balanced effort, a state of being neither too strict nor too lax. 8, upadhana, clear, well-established mindfulness, an ability to recollect with dexterity and fluency. Number 9, upekkha, equanimity in relation to all conditioned phenomena. Number 10, nikanti, a profound and peaceful satisfaction which creates an attachment to insight. This is a subtle form of craving tanha, which the practitioner is unable to discern. Visuddhimagga, VISM 633-7, and VSMT, and then really long Pali words. Okay, back to the main text. I'll just read this last sentence again. The commentaries refer to these higher states of mind as the 10 impurities of insight, which arise in people whose insight practice is still weak. Because these qualities are exceptional and have not been experienced before, practitioners are likely to believe that they have attained path and fruit. This misunderstanding leads them to deviate from the way of insight. They abandon their meditation practice while delighting in these states of mind. The correct way of practice is to recognize the true nature of these mental states when they arise, that they are impermanent, conditioned, dependently arisen, paticca samuppada, and subject to decline. They do not belong to us. They are not who we are. I am not this. This is not mine. By not being overly excited by these mental states, attachment to them wanes. A person is then able to practice correctly until reaching path and fruit. According to the commentaries, there are two principal ways of practice: insight, preceded by tranquility, and tranquility preceded by insight. The remaining two ways of practice are simply extensions of these former two. The third way of practice, of tranquility, insight, in tandem, is a subdivision of the first way of practice. The fourth way of practice is applied in special circumstances when specific problems arise by practicing the first three ways. It is a strategy for solving these problems arising in practice. These two principal ways of practice are probably the origin of the two meditation techniques enumerated in the commentaries: the vehicle of tranquility, samatayana, and of the samatyanika, one who uses tranquility as a vehicle, and the vehicle of insight, vipassanayana, of the vipassanayika, one who uses insight as a vehicle. The samatyanika practices tranquility first and insight later. Generally speaking, this tranquility can simply be access concentration, upakara samadhi, or it can refer to attainment concentration, apana samadhi of the jhanas. The commentaries prefer the more restricted meaning for someone who has attained the jhanas. They claim that the way of practice described by the Buddha, quoted at the beginning of this section, i.e., that the destruction of the taint occurs in dependence on the first jhana, etc., belongs to the samatyanika. The vipassanayika is also called Suddha vipassanayika, one who practices pure insight as a vehicle. This refers to those who develop insight without having previously developed concentration. When they have correctly contemplated the true nature of things, the mind becomes peaceful and concentration arises automatically. At first, the concentration may be momentary, Khanika Samadhi, which is the lowest level of concentration required for subsequent insight practice, as confirmed by this passage. Without momentary concentration, insight cannot function. That's VSMT Patamo Bhago Nidanadikathavanyana. One who begins with temporary concentration and then practices insight is also classified as a vipassana yanika, because most everyone experiences temporary concentration when the mind is settled in an activity or due to a conducive environment. As concentration becomes naturally stronger through insight practice, it may develop into access concentration, upakara samadhi, concentration on the verge of jhana. See note 8.10. And that note is VISMT period. And then again, two long Pali words separated by comma, compounded, both of them. Describes those Suddha vipassanayika without jhana, which means they achieve temporary or excess concentration. Samatyanika and vipassanayanika can be matched with the apana kamathana and upakara kamathana in the cultivation of the four foundations of mindfulness, satipatthana, and that's DAII 754. Yeah, and then a long list of references and longer list of Pali words, again with the VSMT. As evidence that it is possible to practice insight without having first attained jhana, see the Buddha's definition of the faculty of concentration, samadhi, Samadhi Indriya SV200, then CFS V198-9. And back to the main text. Finally, at the moment of realizing path and fruit, concentration is well established as attainment concentration, and one reaches at least the first jhana. See note 8.11. Note 8.11, kinds of concentration. This group of three kinds of concentration, Kanika, Upakara, and Apana, comes from the sub-commentaries found as a complete set at NDAI 129, PSAI 183, DHSA 117, and VSM 144. Occasionally they appear as a pair, Upakara and Apana, VSM 85, 126, 371. Sometimes they are referred to as Upakara Jhana and Apana Jhana. For example, SNAII 504, DHSA 278, VSMT, and again, more long compounded Pali words. Although the word Apana appears in the Pali Canon, it is only used as a synonym for Vitakka and Sama Sankappa. DHS 10, 12, 63, VBH 86, 237, 257. For further analysis of these kinds of samadhi, see the section on right concentration in chapter 18 of Buddhadhamma. Back to the main text. This accords with the principle mentioned earlier that a person realizing the noble realm must be accomplished in both tranquility and insight. Let me read that last paragraph one more time without the note interruptions. Someone who begins with temporary concentration, then practices insight, is also classified as a Vipassana Yanika, because most everyone experiences temporary concentration when the mind is settled in an activity or due to a conducive environment. As concentration becomes naturally stronger through insight practice, it may develop into access concentration on the verge of jhana. Finally, at the moment of realizing path and fruit, concentration is well established as attainment concentration, and one reaches at least the first jhana. This accords with the principle mentioned earlier that a person realizing noble realm must be accomplished in both tranquility and insight. When those who use tranquility as a vehicle attain arhatship, they are divided into two kinds: those liberated by wisdom, panavimutta, and those liberated both ways, Buddhaghosacariya. The former are those who have attained jhana, not higher than the fourth jhana. The latter are those who have attained a formless jhana or higher, up to the extinction of perception and feelings. Those who use insight as a vehicle and who attain arhatship are also classified as panavimutta, and the commentaries assign a special name for them: Sukha Vipassaka, dry insight practitioner. And it says, see note 8.12. Before I do that, though, this last sentence, the commentaries divide the arhats into 10 kinds, listed from the highest to the lowest. And then note 8.12, dry insight practitioners. The terms samatha yanika, vipassana yanika, vipassana yanika, and sukha vipassaka, those whose realization is arid because they do not attain jhana before developing insight, all come from the commentaries. And there's a whole list of references there. So back to the classification, those liberated both ways, Ubhato Bhaga Vimutta, and it says see note 8.13, which is called liberated both ways. See the earlier section of the Seven Noble Beings. The first of these, Ubhato Bhaga Vimutta, listed here, who have attained the extinction of perception and feeling, only reach this highest concentrative attainment as non-returners. This is unlike the other attainments which are achievable at any stage of practice. The other 8 attainments are exclusively the fruit of samatha, while extinction of perception and feeling is the fruit of samatha and vipassana in association. In particular, the extinction of perception and feeling requires an optimum strength and purity of concentration, with no trace of sensual desire. Kamachanda, remaining in the mind. Kamachanda is synonymous with kamaraga, sensual lust, a fetter samyojana, which only non-returners and arhats have abandoned. Therefore, non-returners and arhats who have previously attained the 8 jhanas can enter the extinction of perception and feeling, e.g. VISM 702-5, PSA I 314. So this category A, those liberated both ways. Number 1, liberated in both ways and accomplished in the extinction of perception and feeling. 2, liberated in both ways and accomplished in the sphere of neither perception or non-perception. Number 3, liberated in both ways and accomplished in the sphere of nothingness. Number 4, liberated in both ways and accomplished in the sphere of infinite consciousness. Number 5, liberated both ways and accomplished in the sphere of infinite space. B, those liberated by wisdom, Panya Vimutta. 6, liberated through wisdom and accomplished in the 4th jhana. 7, liberated through wisdom and accomplished in the 3rd jhana. 8, liberated through wisdom and accomplished in the 2nd jhana. 9, liberated through wisdom and accomplished in the 1st jhana. And 10, liberated through wisdom as a dry insight practitioner. The first 9 kinds of arhats use tranquility as a vehicle. Their concentrative accomplishments occur before practicing insight. The 10th kind of arhat uses insight as a vehicle. 8.4 Basic Principles of Tranquility Meditation. Passages in the Tipitaka describing particular ways of practice use rather fixed terminology, even though these passages appear in different locations. There are 2 main outlines for the way of practice, in which tranquility precedes insight, and they both involve reaching a superior level of concentration before developing insight. This can be called the supreme way of practice. The following examples of these 2 main outlines are drawn from passages recording the Buddha's awakening. A. Outline number 1. This common description describes the 4 jhanas, followed by the threefold knowledge vijja. So too, Visana, when I had eaten solid food and regained my strength, quite secluded from sensual pleasures, secluded from unwholesome states, I entered upon and abided in the 1st jhana, the 2nd jhana, the 3rd jhana, the 4th jhana. When my concentrated mind was thus purified, bright, unblemished, rid of imperfection, upakilesa, malleable, wieldy, steady, and attained to imperturbability, I directed it to knowledge of the recollection of past lives, This was the first true knowledge attained by me in the first watch of the night. Ignorance was banished and true knowledge arose. Darkness was banished and light arose. When my concentrated mind was thus purified, I directed it to knowledge of the passing away and reappearance of beings, This was the second true knowledge attained by me in the second watch of the night. Ignorance was banished, light arose. When my concentrated mind was thus purified, I directed it to knowledge of the destruction of the taints. I directly knew as it actually is. This is suffering. This is the origin of suffering. This is the cessation of suffering. This is the way leading to the cessation of suffering. These are the taints. This is the origin of the taints. This is the cessation of the taints. This is the way leading to the cessation of the taints. When I knew and saw thus, my mind was liberated from the taint of sensual desire, from the taint of becoming, and from the taint of ignorance. When it was liberated, there came the knowledge. It is liberated. I directly knew. Birth is destroyed. The holy life has been lived. What had to be done has been done. There is no more coming to any state of being. This was the third true knowledge attained by me in the third watch of the night. Ignorance was banished, light arose. MI 247-9. When this description is used to describe the practice of realization for disciples of the Buddha, the terminology is usually the same except for the passages in brackets. And I didn't denote that, side note here. I'm not going to go back and do that, sorry.
Some passages describe directing the mind to the 8 kinds of knowledge, rather than just the 3 mentioned above, while other passages only mention directing the mind to the final knowledge of destruction of the taints. B, outline number 2. A less common description describes the 8 concentrative attainments, samapatti, in addition to the attainment of cessation, nirodha samapatti, followed by the knowledge of the destruction of the taints. So too, Ananda, quite secluded from sensual pleasure, secluded from unwholesome states, I entered and dwelled in the first jhana, but as I was dwelling in this state, mental application accompanied by perception, sanya, manasikara, associated with sensuality, disturbed my mind, which was for me an impediment, a bata. Then it occurred to me, with the subsiding of applied and sustained thought, let me enter and dwell in the second jhana. Then, on a later occasion, I entered and dwelled in the second jhana, but as I dwelled in this state, mental application accompanied by perception associated with applied thought disturbed my mind, which was for me an impediment. Then it occurred to me, let me enter and dwell in the third jhana. Then on a later occasion, I entered and dwelled in the third jhana, but as I dwelled in this state, mental application accompanied by perception associated with rapture disturbed my mind, which was for me an impediment. Then it occurred to me, let me enter and dwell in the fourth jhana. Then on a later occasion, I entered and dwelled in the fourth jhana, but as I dwelled in this state, mental application accompanied by perception associated with equanimity disturbed my mind, which was for me an impediment. Then it occurred to me, with the complete surmounting of perceptions of form, let me enter and dwell in the base of infinite space. Then on a later occasion, I entered and dwelled in the base of infinite space, but as I dwelled in this state, mental application accompanied by perception associated with physical form disturbed my mind, which was for me an impediment. Then it occurred to me, with the complete surmounting of the base of infinite space, let me enter and dwell in the base of infinite consciousness. Then on a later occasion, I entered and dwelled in the base of infinite consciousness, but as I dwelled in the state, mental application accompanied by perception associated with the base of infinite space disturbed my mind, which was for me an impediment. And then it occurred to me, by completely surmounting the base of infinite consciousness, let me enter and dwell in the base of nothingness. Then on a later occasion, I entered and dwelled in the base of nothingness, but as I dwelled in this state, mental application accompanied by perception associated with the base of infinite consciousness disturbed my mind, which was for me an impediment. Then it occurred to me, by completely surmounting the base of nothingness, let me enter and dwell in the base of neither perception or non-perception. Then on a later occasion, I entered and dwelled in the base of neither perception or non-perception, but as I dwelled in this state, mental application accompanied by perception associated with the base of nothingness disturbed my mind, which was for me an impediment. Then it occurred to me, by completely surmounting the base of neither perception or non-perception, let me attain the extinction of perception and feeling. Then on a later occasion, having seen the danger in the base of neither perception or non-perception, I attained the extinction of perception and feeling, and by seeing with wisdom, the taints were completely destroyed. So long, Ananda, as I did not attain and emerge from these 9 gradual abidings, in both direct and reverse order, I did not claim to have awakened to the unsurpassed perfect enlightenment in this world, with its devas, Mara, and Brahma, in this generation, with its ascetics and Brahmins, its devas and humans. But when I attained and emerged from these 9 gradual abidings, in both direct and reverse order, then I claim to have awakened to the unsurpassed perfect enlightenment in this world, with its devas and humans. The knowledge and vision arose in me. Unshakable is my liberation of mind. This is my last birth. Now there is no more renewed existence. AIV 439-48. When the second outline of the gradual path to enlightenment is used in a general sense for disciples, it follows the same terminology but without the detailed analysis. When that monk abandons the 5 hindrances, quite secluded from sensual pleasures, secluded from unwholesome states, he enters upon and abides in the first jhana, second jhana, third jhana, fourth jhana, the base of infinite space, the base of infinite consciousness, the base of nothingness, the base of neither perception nor non-perception, perception, ... enters and abides in the extinction of perception and feeling, and having seen with wisdom, his taints are utterly destroyed. AIV 437-8. The reason for selecting two passages describing the Buddha's enlightenment as examples for the two outlines of practice is to show how these two ways of practice are essentially the same, despite appearing different. And they both describe the enlightenment of a single Buddha, and this enlightenment occurred only once. Scholars may be confused by or misunderstand these two outlines of practice by interpreting each description too literally and overlooking evidence from other sources that reveal their compatibility. There are 5 main misunderstandings about these two outlines of practice. Number 1, the belief that it is necessary to attain the first two kinds of knowledge, recollection of past lives and the knowledge of passing away and rebirth of beings, before one is able to reach awakening. Number 2, the belief that the 4th fine material jhana is an adequate basis for reaching the threefold knowledge, vijja, and the 6 kinds of higher psychic attainments, abhinna. Number 3, the belief that it is possible to reach enlightenment while abiding in the extinction of perception and feeling. Number 4, the belief that these two outlines indicate two distinct ways of practice to awakening. Number 5, the belief that the gradual attainments described in these outlines occur in a single period of time. Let us look more closely at these misunderstandings. A, evidence that it is not necessary to attain the recollection of past lives or the knowledge of the passing away and rebirth of beings in order to attain arhatship or realize nibbana is clear. Number 1, in some examples of the first outline, there is no mention of the first two kinds of knowledge. A person attains the 4th jhana and directs the concentrated mind directly to the destruction of the taints. These examples show that the two former kinds of knowledge are optional. In the Susima Sutta, the Buddha describes arhats liberated by wisdom, panavamutta, who are not attached to the 5 aggregates and discern dependent origination, and yet are unable to perform psychic powers. They do not have the divine ear, telepathy, recollection of past lives, the divine eye, nor do they dwell in peaceful deliverances. That's Santa Vimokkha, equaling the formless attainments. They only possess the knowledge of the destruction of the taints. They do not possess the 5 mundane kinds of supreme knowledge, abhinna, nor have they accessed the formless jhanas. Number 3, the attainment of the 6 abhinna, including the 3 vijja, depends on a certain degree of refined concentration. With sufficient concentration, a person is able to direct the mind to generate a desired kind of abhinna. It is not necessary to attain one kind of supreme knowledge before attaining another. That concentration has attained to full tranquility and achieved mental unification, ... Then, to whatever mental state realizable by direct knowledge, abhinna jakaranaya dhamma, he directs his mind, he achieves the capacity of realizing that state by direct knowledge whenever the necessary conditions obtain. If he wishes, may I wield the various kinds of psychic power, ... May I hear both kinds of sounds, the divine and the human, ... May I understand the minds of other beings, ... May I recollect my manifold past lives, ... May I see beings passing away and being reborn, ... May I in this very life enter and dwell in the taintless liberation of mind, ... He achieves the capacity of realizing that state by direct knowledge whenever the necessary conditions obtain. It's AI 254, AIII 16-17, 25, 82-3, AIV 421, MIII 97. The required level of concentration to reach these attainments is as follows. B. The concentration samadhi of the 4th jhana is the highest form of concentration. Even the concentration of the formless jhanas is classified as the concentration of the 4th jhana, since the mental factors of the formless jhanas consist of the same 2 factors of the 4th jhana, equanimity, upekkha, and one-pointedness, ekaggata.
The concentration of the fourth jhana is universally applicable. It can be used, for example, as the basis for insight, for supreme knowledge, abhinya, or for the attainment of extinction. There is, however, a special clause. The concentration of the formless jhanas is more refined and further from adverse conditions, Bhikkhu, than the concentration of the fourth jhana. Even the different formless jhanas become progressively more refined. It is for this reason that those who attain arhatship after attaining the fourth jhana are classified as liberated by wisdom, panavimutta, not as liberated both ways, Buddhaghosacariya. To be classified as liberated both ways, one must have previously attained one of the formless jhanas. Therefore, there is a proviso to the commentarial statements that the fourth jhana is used as a basis for other attainments. In some cases, the concentration of ordinary fourth jhana is used, while in other cases, the more refined concentration of fourth jhana of the formless jhanas is required. As mentioned earlier, literally speaking, persons liberated by wisdom, panavimutta, have only attained the knowledge of the destruction of the taints. They have not attained other forms of knowledge, vijja or abhinya, nor have they attained the formless jhanas. Attainment of the three vijja or the six abhinya is the domain of one liberated both ways, Buddhaghosacariya, who has also attained formless jhana. This is the standard definition as found in the Pali Canon. The commentaries offer a more elaborate definition which can be summarized as follows. At first, a person practices tranquility meditation until attaining the fourth jhana. This is followed by the attainments of all 8 jhanas. These attainments, however, must be a result of practicing the 8 kasina meditations, excluding the meditations on light and space. Having gained fluency in the 8 attainments, the mind becomes receptive. At this point, a person only needs to enter the fourth jhana and then directs the mind to generate or apply one of the abhinya according to his wishes. As preparation, a person must access the 8 attainments, but at the time of achieving a supreme attainment, abhinya, accessing the fourth jhana is sufficient. Due to the previous cultivation of the 8 jhanas, a person's concentration in this case will be more refined than the concentration of someone who has never attained a level higher than the fourth jhana. From the angle of this commentarial explanation, one can say that the fourth jhana is a basis for supreme knowledge, abhinya. This conforms to the statement that the mind possessing 8 factors by developing the concentration of the fourth jhana to the degree of the formless attainments is suitable for application. It is the basis or proximate cause, Buddhadhamma, for realizing any state that may be realized by direct knowledge. Exceptions to this rule are those who have a strong previous connection, Pubbha Yoga, those who have made effort and accumulated virtue in the past, for instance, the Buddha, the silent Buddhas, Pechika Buddha, and the chief disciples. They need not follow this procedure and become proficient in the formless jhanas. They simply need to be skilled in the fourth jhana to achieve abhinya. The 2 passages above describing the Buddha's awakening are comparable with this interpretation, even if they do not mention a previous connection. In the first passage, the Buddha accesses the fourth jhana and then directs the mind to realize the 3 vijja. Early in his life, he had established a strong foundation in samatha and attained the 8 jhanas while living with the teachers Alara Kalama and Uddaka Ramaputta. The second passage reveals that the Buddha developed proficiency at all levels of concentrative absorptions before his enlightenment.
C. Passages describing the extinction of perception and feeling, Sanya Vedayita Nirodha, can easily lead inexperienced readers to the false conclusion that a person who has attained this state reaches arhatship while abiding in this attainment. By completely surmounting the base of neither perception nor non-perception, he enters and abides in the extinction of perception and feeling, and having seen with wisdom, his taints are completely destroyed. AIV 437.8. This passage lists the sequence of practice and realization, but does not include the circumstances or intermediate details. The reader should see this as a list of stages, not as a description of a single event. Compare it with a passage from the Pali Canon that provides more detail. By completely surmounting the base of neither perception or non-perception, a monk enters and abides in the extinction of perception and feeling. When a monk both attains to and emerges from that attainment, his mind becomes subtle and pliant. And with his mind subtle and pliant, immeasurable concentration has been well developed by him. With this immeasurable concentration that is well developed, he directs his mind to whatever mental state is realizable by direct knowledge, and he attains the ability to witness these states whenever the necessary conditions obtain. If he wishes, may I wield the various kinds of psychic power, ... May I hear both kinds of sounds, the divine and human, ... May I in this very life enter and dwell in the taintless liberation of mind, ... He achieves the capacity of realizing that state by direct knowledge whenever the necessary conditions obtain. AIV 421 CF DII 71. In the second passage, the entering upon, the extinction of perception and feeling, and the destruction of the taints are separated. The attainment of Sanya Vedayita Nirodha is a supportive condition, bestowing a suitable level of concentration to the mind. Afterwards, by seeing with wisdom, a person dwells in the taintless liberation of mind. These passages corroborate the fact that the two earlier outlines for the way of practice in which tranquility precedes insight have essentially the same meaning. D. As can be seen from the previous 3 points addressing various misunderstandings, the two main outlines describe a single way of practice from different angles. The first outline emphasizes the practice and highest realization that results from applying well-developed concentration to accomplish supreme knowledge and insight. The second outline describes intermediary stages of tranquility meditation, along with the true purpose of tranquility, the first stage of insight. In this sense, the previous 3 points have already addressed the misunderstanding that the two formulas describe two distinct ways of practice. Points 2 and 3 have already touched upon the subject of time in reference to practice and realization. In the first outline, the Buddha's gradual attainment of the 3 vijja occur in the 3 watches of a single night. But in the case of other practitioners, the attainment of each vijja or each abhinna can happen either in quick succession or separated by months or years. The second outline describing the Buddha's concentrative attainments clearly indicates that a period of time elapses between each attainment. Examples of the same outline describing the attainments of other practitioners, however, do not mention time, which can give the impression that these attainments occur during a single time period. In fact, there is no uniform period of time that these attainments occur. It will vary from person to person. The two outlines merely describe the different levels of attainment. They do not necessarily define the time involved. There are passages in the scriptures that confirm this fact. For example, the story of Venerable Sariputta in the Dighanakha Sutta, while the Buddha was giving a discourse on feeling, Vedana, and other topics in the Boar's Cave on Mount Vulture Peak. To the wanderer Dighanakha, Sariputta was standing behind the Buddha, fanning him. Reflecting on this Dhamma teaching, Sariputta realized arhatship. This occurred after Sariputta had been ordained for 2 weeks. Looking at this sutta in isolation, one may have the impression that Sariputta had not reached any attainments to add to his opening of the Dhamma, the Eye of Dhamma, stream entry, 2 weeks previous to this occasion. Instead, at this moment, he realized complete awakening, arhatship. But by reading the
Anupada Sutta, one sees that during these 2 weeks, Sariputta was developing insight in conjunction with jhanas, yuganadha samatha vipassana, tranquility and insight in unison, without interruption, from the first jhana to the extinction of perception and feeling. This reveals that he had realized the fruit of non-returning before listening to the Buddhadhamma Sutta. One last question that should be addressed is, can arhats develop tranquility meditation and increase concentrative attainments or psychic powers after being enlightened? Those who use insight as a vehicle of vipassana yanika have not previously attained jhana, but at the moment of path realization, concentration becomes firm and they access the first jhana. Afterwards, they can access the first jhana, fruit of attainment, phala samapatti, in order to abide in happiness in the present whenever they wish. The question here is whether they can develop higher levels of jhana. The sub-commentaries claim they can. Their state of mind is conducive to refining and strengthening concentration. They probably develop samatha to promote a happy abiding in the present. Buddhadhamma Sukha Vihara. See note 8.14. In that note, 8.14, abiding, COMPT, and the long Pali words here for that, mentions a non-returner who was a bare insight practitioner, Sukha Vipassaka, and who generated a concentrative attainment at the moment of death so as to be able to take birth in the pure abodes, Suddhavasa. DAIII 1007 defines concentrative meditation for a happy abiding in the present at DIII 222-3 as both the fruit of jhana attainment and the jhanas that arhats subsequently develop. PANCA 107 describes arhats who access consecutive levels of concentrative attainment unattained by them before. AI 242-3 describes how, at the moment of the opening of the eye of Dhamma, the noble disciple abandons the first 3 fetters, realizes stream entry. Later, the eye of Dhamma occurs again, and both greed and ill will are abandoned, realization of non-returning. This disciple then enters the first jhana. If he dies at such a time, no fetters exist that would lead him back to this world. From one angle, it appears in this sutta that the disciple attained first jhana after realizing non-returning, but from our earlier explanations, one must interpret this as accessing a jhana previously attained. Back to the main text. The same most likely holds true in regards to supernormal powers, abhinna. For 2 reasons, however, arhats do not spend a lot of effort trying to attain new powers. First, they do not need to seek special psychic powers for their own advantage, and second, the benefits to others are not enough to warrant the difficulty and time required to develop them, as described in the Visuddhimagga. See note 8.15. Note 8.15, difficulty of psychic powers, VISM 371 to 426, especially 375 to 6, illustrates difficulty of developing psychic powers, probably based on PSI 111 to 15. Now, the Kasina preliminary work is difficult for a beginner, and only 1 in 100 or 1,000 can do it. The arousing of the sign is difficult for one who has done the preliminary work, and only 1 in 100 or 1,000 can do it. To extend the sign when it has arisen and to reach absorption is difficult, and only 1 in 100 or 1,000 can do it. To tame one's mind in the 14 ways after reaching absorption is difficult, and only 1 in 100 or 1,000 can do it. The application of supernormal power after training one's mind in this way is difficult, and only 1 in 100 or 1,000 can do it. The rapid attainment of jhana after application is difficult, and only 1 in 100 or 1,000 can do it.
back to the main text, arhats are more likely to use the time and effort to teach others, which is called the miracle of teaching, anu sasani pati hariya, and which the Buddha praised as the greatest of all miracles. This is superior to concerning oneself with mundane psychic powers, which are potentially harmful and lead ordinary people to be fascinated in a mysterious and obscure world that lies beyond their ability to understand and causes them to neglect more important activities. Normally, people seek protection in external conditions or divine powers, which opposes fundamental Buddhist principles. Arhats who do not wield mundane psychic powers still possess what the Buddha called a noble power, arya iti. They are able to look at unendearing, repulsive people and things as endearing and not repulsive. Similarly, they can see attractive, alluring people and things as impermanent, conditioned, and unworthy of attachment. This is a greater power than walking on water, diving into the ground, or flying through the air, which the Buddha said are not noble, carry risk, and do not lead to liberation. These mundane psychic powers are not the essence of Buddhism, and they are not an indication of a person's value. One can find evidence of these powers before the time of the Buddha and in other traditions. They are only considered excellent when applied by one who is pure and fully awakened. For ordinary people, they can be as dangerous as they are helpful. A fully awakened person, or even someone attained to a lesser stage of awakening, who has moral conduct and perfect right view, samaditi, is superior to someone possessing the 5 mundane powers, but devoid of these virtues. Most of the Buddha's arhat disciples are liberated by wisdom, panavamutta, without elevating to higher levels of concentrative attainment, and even many of the disciples liberated both ways, Buddhagosacariya, did not generate the 5 mundane powers. 8.5 Basic Principles of Insight Practice. The contemplation of conditioned phenomena giving rise to clear understanding and to seeing things as they truly are is an essential ingredient to realizing path and fruit. Everyone who practices for the goal of Buddhism, whether they use tranquility or insight as a vehicle, and regardless of which of the 4 modes of practice, tranquility preceded by insight, etc., they follow, must pass the stage of insight vipassana meditation. Someone who uses insight as a vehicle will practice in this way from the beginning, whereas someone using tranquility as vehicle will apply this meditation in the final stages. Drawing upon the previous section on tranquility meditation, this contemplation is an extension of the earlier cited passage, by seeing with wisdom the taints are completely destroyed. In other words, it refers to liberation by wisdom, panyavamutti. There are many standard definitions in the Pali Canon to describe this path of insight. Before looking at these definitions, let us examine some passages describing the Buddha's enlightenment, which are also outlines of insight. This will reveal how a single event can be explained in many different ways. When my knowledge and vision of these 4 noble truths as they really are, in their 3 phases and 12 aspects, was thoroughly purified in this way, then I claim to have awakened to the unsurpassed perfect enlightenment in this world, ... The knowledge and vision arose in me. Unshakable is the liberation of my mind. This is my last birth. Now there is no more renewed existence. VIN I-11 SV 422-3. When I directly knew as they really are with the gratification, asada, the danger, adinava, and the escape, nisarana, in the case of these 5 aggregates subject to clinging, then I claim to have awakened to the unsurpassed perfect enlightenment in this world, ... Now there is no more renewed existence. SIII 28. When I directly knew as they really are the gratification, the danger, and the escape in the case of these 6 internal sense bases, then I claim to have awakened to the unsurpassed perfect enlightenment in this world, ... Now there is no more renewed existence. SIV 7-8. When I directly knew as they really are the origin and the passing away,
the gratification, the danger, and the escape in the case of these 5 spiritual faculties: faith, energy, mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom, then I claim to have awakened to the unsurpassed perfect enlightenment in this world, ... Now there is no more renewed existence, SV 204. When I directly knew as they really are, the origin and the passing away, the gratification, the danger, and the escape in the case of these 6 sense faculties, eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind, then I claim to have awakened to the unsurpassed perfect enlightenment in this world, ... Now there's no more renewed existence, SV 206. Monks, concentration by mindfulness of breathing, when developed and cultivated, is of great fruit and great benefit, ... I too, monks, before my enlightenment, while I was still a bodhisattva, not yet fully enlightened, frequently dwelt in this abiding. While I frequently dwelt in this abiding, neither my body nor my eyes became fatigued, and my mind, by not clinging, was liberated from the taints. SV 316-17. Feeling Vedana is this way. Thus, monks, in regard to things unheard before, there arose in me vision, knowledge, wisdom, true knowledge, and light, ... This is the origin of feeling, ... This is the way leading to the origination of feeling, ... This is the cessation of feeling, ... This is the way leading to the cessation of feeling, ... This is the gratification in feeling, ... This is the danger in feeling, ... This is the escape from feeling. Thus, monks, ... there arose in me vision, knowledge, wisdom, true knowledge, and light. SIV 233-4. This is the contemplation of body in the body, Kaya Nupassana. Thus, monks, in regard to things unheard before, there arose in me vision, knowledge, true wisdom, true knowledge, and light, ... That contemplation of the body in the body is to be developed, ... That contemplation of the body in the body has been developed, ... This is the contemplation of feelings in feelings, ... This is the contemplation of mind in mind, ... This is the contemplation of phenomena, Dhamma in phenomena, ... That contemplation of phenomena in phenomena has been developed. Thus, monks, ... Light. SV 178-9. This is the basis for spiritual power, iddhipada of enthusiasm. Thus, monks, in regard to things unheard before, there arose in me vision, knowledge, wisdom, true knowledge, and light, ... That basis for spiritual power of enthusiasm is to be developed, ... That basis for spiritual power of enthusiasm has been developed, ... This is the basis for spiritual power of energy, ... This is the basis for spiritual power of dedicated application of mind, chitta, ... This is the basis for spiritual power of investigation, ... There arose in me vision, knowledge, wisdom, true knowledge, and light. SV 258. Monks, before my enlightenment, while I was still a bodhisattva, not yet fully enlightened, it occurred to me, alas, this world has fallen into trouble, in that it is born, ages, and dies, it passes away, and is reborn, yet it does not understand the escape from this suffering headed by aging and death. When will an escape be discerned from this suffering headed by aging and death? Then, monks, it occurred to me, when what exists, does aging and death come to be? By what is aging and death conditioned? Then, monks, through careful attention, there took place in me a breakthrough by wisdom. When there is birth, aging and death comes to be. Aging and death has birth as its condition, ... When what does birth come to be? ... Does becoming come to be? ... Does clinging come to be? ... Does craving come to be? ... Does feeling come to be? ... Does contact come to be? ... Do the 6 sense bases come to be? ... Does mind and body come to be? ... Then, monks, the question occurred in me, when what exists does consciousness come to be? By what is consciousness conditioned? Then, monks, through careful attention, there took place in me a breakthrough by wisdom. When there is mind and body, consciousness comes to be. Consciousness has mind and body as its condition. Then, monks, it occurred to me, this consciousness turns back. It does not go further than mind and body. It is to this extent that one may be born and age and die, pass away and be reborn, that is, when there is consciousness with mind and body as its condition, and mind and body with consciousness as its condition. With mind and body as condition, the six sense bases, with the six sense bases as condition, contact, ... Such is the origin of this whole mass of suffering. Origination. Thus, monks, in regard to things unheard before, there arose in me vision, knowledge, wisdom, true knowledge, and light. Then, monks, it occurred to me, when what does not exist, does aging and death not come to be? With the cessation of what does the cessation of aging and death come about? Then, monks, through careful attention, there took place in me a breakthrough by wisdom. When there is no birth, aging and death does not come to be. With the cessation of birth comes cessation of aging and death, ... When what does not exist, does birth not come to be, ... Does becoming not come to be, ... Does clinging not come to be, ... Does craving not come to be, ... Does feeling not come to be, ... Does contact not come to be, ... Do the six sense bases not come to be, ... Does mind and body not come to be, ... Then, monks, it occurred to me, when what exists, does consciousness not come to be? With the cessation of what does the cessation of consciousness come about? Then, monks, through careful attention, there took place in me a breakthrough by wisdom. When there is no mind and body, consciousness does not come to be. With the cessation of mind and body comes cessation of consciousness. Then, monks, it occurred to me, I have discovered this path to enlightenment, that is, with the cessation of mind and body comes cessation of consciousness. With the cessation of consciousness comes cessation of mind and body. With the cessation of mind and body, cessation of the six sense bases. With the cessation of the six sense bases, cessation of contact, ... Such is the cessation of this whole mass of suffering. Cessation. Thus, monks, in regard to things unheard before, there arose in me vision, knowledge, wisdom, true knowledge, and light. So too, monks, I saw the ancient path, the ancient road traveled by the perfectly enlightened ones of the past, ... It is just this noble eightfold path, that is, right view, right intention, ... right concentration. I followed that path, and by doing so, I have directly known aging and death, its origin, its cessation, and the way leading to its cessation. I have directly known birth, ... becoming, ... clinging, ... craving, ... feeling, ... contact, ... the six sense bases, ... mind and body, ... consciousness, ... volitional formations, their origin, their cessation, and the way leading to their cessation. Having directly known them, I have explained them to the bhikkhus, the bhikkhunis, the male lay followers, and the female lay followers. This holy life, monk, has become successful and prosperous, popular, widespread, firmly established, well proclaimed among devas and humans. SII 104-7. There are many standard definitions for the realization of arhatship through insight by the Buddha's disciples. Some are similar to the passages presented above of the Buddha's enlightenment, while others vary, but essentially they're the same. Phenomena, most often the 5 aggregates or the 12 sense spheres, are divided into different parts, and their true nature is examined according to the 3 characteristics: impermanence, dukkha, and not-self. Many passages focus on the belief in self and emphasize the characteristic of not-self. Some passages trace the relationship between conditions in the context of dependent origination. From the angle of Dhamma practice, these passages all refer to one or more of the groups found in the 37 factors of enlightenment, Buddhadhamma. The outlines explain particular ways of contemplation can be extremely helpful for insight practice if one can capture their meaning and not get confused by the technical language. Below are some examples of these outlines. The commentaries say the Buddha gave these teachings on different occasions depending on the disposition of the listener. A. Contemplation on the five aggregates. Monks, form is impermanent. Feeling is impermanent. Perception is impermanent. Volitional formations are impermanent. Consciousness is impermanent. Seeing thus, monks, the instructed noble disciple experiences disenchantment towards form, feeling, perception, volitional formations, consciousness. Experience disenchantment, he becomes dispassionate. Through dispassionate, his mind is liberated. When it is liberated, there comes the knowledge it is liberated. He understands. Destroyed his birth. The holy life has been lived. What had to be done has been done. There is no more for this state of being. Monks, form is subject to stress, dukkha, ... feeling, ... perception, ... volitional formations, ... Consciousness is subject to stress, ... Seeing thus, the instructed noble disciple experiences disenchantment, ... Monks, form is not self, anatta, ... Feeling, ... perception, ... volitional formations, ... Consciousness is not self, ... Seeing thus, the instructed noble disciple experiences disenchantment. E.G.S.III. 21. The contemplation in this passage on the three characteristics is sometimes changed to similar contemplations. For example, form is Mara, feelings are hot embers, form is subject to arising and cessation, etc. Monks, form, ... feeling, ... perception, ... volitional formations, ... Consciousness is impermanent. What is impermanent is subject to stress, dukkha. What is subject to stress is not self. What is not self should be seen as it really is, with correct wisdom thus. This is not mine. This I am not. This is not myself. Seeing thus, the instructed noble disciple experiences disenchantment. SIII 22, 82-3. Monks, the body is not self. If the body were self, it would not lead to affliction. And if it would be possible to have it of the body, may my body be this way, may it not be that way. But because the body is not self, the body leads to affliction, and it is not possible to have it of the body. May my body be this way, may it not be that way. Feeling is not self, ... Perception is not self, ... Volitional formations are not self, ... Consciousness is not self. For if consciousness were self, it would not lead to affliction, and it would be possible to have it of consciousness. May my consciousness be this way, may it not be that way. But because consciousness is not self, consciousness leads to affliction, and it is not possible to have it of consciousness. May my consciousness be this way, may it not be that way. What do you think, monks? Is the body permanent or impermanent? Impermanent, Venerable Sir. Is that which is permanent stressful, dukkha, or easeful, sukha? Stressful, Venerable Sir. Is what is impermanent stressful and of the nature to change, fit to be regarded thus? This is mine, this is I, this is myself. No, Venerable Sir. What do you think, monks? Are feelings permanent or impermanent, ... Is perception permanent or impermanent, ... Are volitional formations permanent or impermanent, ... Is consciousness permanent or impermanent? Impermanent, Venerable Sir. Is what is impermanent stressful and of the nature to change, fit to be regarded thus? This is mine, this is I, this is myself. No, Venerable Sir. Therefore, monks, you should see any kind of physical form, ... feeling, ... perception, Volitional formation, consciousness whatsoever, whether past, future, or present, internal or external, coarse or subtle, inferior or superior, far or near, as it actually is with proper wisdom thus. This is not mine, this is not I, this is not myself. Seeing thus, the instructed noble disciple experiences disenchantment. SIII 66-8. Whatever kind of form, feeling, perception, volitional formation, consciousness there is, whether past, future, or present, internal or external, coarse or subtle, inferior or superior, far or near, a bhikkhu inspects it, ponders it, and carefully investigates it, and it would appear to him to be void, hollow, insubstantial. For what substantiality could there be in form, feeling, perception, volitional formation, consciousness? SIII 140-42. Monks. A monk sees as impermanent form, feeling, perception, volitional formations, consciousness, which is actually impermanent. That is his right view. Seeing rightly, he experiences dispassion. With the destruction of delight comes the destruction of lust. With the destruction of lust comes the destruction of delight. With the destruction of delight and lust, the mind is liberated and is said to be well liberated. SIII 51. Monks, attend carefully to form. Recognize the impermanence of form as it really is. When a monk attends carefully to form and recognizes the impermanence of form as it really is, he experiences dispassion towards form. With the destruction of delight comes the destruction of lust. With the destruction of lust comes the destruction of delight. The mind is liberated and said to be well liberated. Monks attend carefully to feeling, perception, volitional formations, consciousness. SIII 52. B. Contemplations on the sense spheres. Monks, and I'm going to skip the ... but just know there is some between the senses here. Monks, the eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind is impermanent. Seeing thus, the instructed noble disciple experiences dispassion. The eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind is subject to stress. The eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind is not self. Forms, sounds, odors, taste, tactile objects, mental formations are impermanent, subject to stress. Forms, sounds, odors, taste, tactile objects, mental phenomena are impermanent, subject to stress, not self. Seeing thus, the instructed noble disciple experiences disenchantment. SIV 155-6. Again, there's dots all in between on that past one. 3 dots between, of course, the sense bases and the object of the sense bases. Then after impermanent, before subject, and after stress, before not self. Or more dots. And of course, the first subject to stress has 4 dots after it, as well as the word before that, dispassion. It probably would have just been easier for me to do the ... So the contemplation in this passage on the 3 characteristics is sometimes changed to similar contemplations. For example, the eye is obscured, the eye is burning, and the eye is subject to destruction. Monks, the eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind is impermanent. What is impermanent is subject to stress. What is subject to stress is not self. What is not self should be seen as it really is with correct wisdom. Thus, this is not mine, this I am not, this is not myself. Seeing thus, the instructed noble disciple experiences disenchantment, Monks, forms, sounds, odors, taste, tangibles, mental phenomena are impermanent. What is impermanent is subject to stress. What is subject to stress is not self. What is not self should be seen as it really is with correct wisdom. Thus, this is not mine, This I am not. This is not myself. Seeing thus, the instructed noble disciple experiences disenchantment. SIV 1-3. What do you think, monks? Is the body permanent or impermanent? Impermanent, Venerable Sir. Is that which is impermanent stressful or easeful? Stressful, Venerable Sir. Is that which is impermanent, stressful, and of the nature change fit to be regarded thus? This is mine, this is I, this is myself. No, Venerable Sir. What do you think, monks? Is the ear, nose, tongue, body, mind, eye consciousness, ear consciousness, mind consciousness, eye contact, mind contact, ... Whatever feeling arises with eye contact as condition, whatever feeling arises with mind contact as condition, whether pleasant or painful, or neither painful nor pleasant, permanent or impermanent. Impermanent, Venerable Sir. Is what is impermanent stressful and of the nature to change fit to be regarded thus? This is mine, this is I, this is myself? No, Venerable Sir. Seeing thus, the instructed noble disciple experiences disenchantment. SIV 48. Again, leaving out some of the dots here. Monks, the eye is impermanent. The cause and condition for the arising of the eye is also impermanent. As the eye has originated from what is impermanent, how could it be permanent? The eye is subject to stress. The cause and condition for the arising of the eye is also stressful. As the eye has originated from what is stressful, how could it be easeful? The eye is not self. The cause and condition for the arising of the eye is also not self. As the eye has originated from what is not self, how could it be self? Seeing thus, the instructed noble disciple experiences disenchantment. Same for the remaining 5 sense bases and the 6 sense objects. SIV 129-32. A monk sees as impermanent the eye, ear, nose, mind, sights, sounds, mental phenomena, which are actually impermanent. That is his right view. Seeing rightly, he experiences dispassion. With the destruction of delight comes the destruction of lust. The mind is liberated and said to be well liberated. SIV 142. Monks attend carefully to the eye. Recognize the impermanence of the eye as it really is. When a monk attends carefully to the eye and recognizes the impermanence of the eye as it really is, he experiences dispassion towards the eye. With the destruction of delight comes the destruction of lust. The mind is liberated and is said to be well liberated. Monks attend carefully to the ear, nose, mind, sights, sounds, mental phenomena. Those pauses were the ... SIV 142-3. A certain bhikkhu approached the Blessed One, ... and said to him, Venerable Sir, is there one thing through the abandoning of which ignorance is abandoned by a bhikkhu and true knowledge arises? The Buddha replied, when a bhikkhu knows and sees the eye, forms, the ear, sounds, the mind, mental objects, mind consciousness, mind contact, whatever feelings arises with mind contact as condition, whether pleasant or painful or neutral, as impermanent, ignorance is abandoned in him and true knowledge arises. SIV 49-50. A certain bhikkhu approached the Blessed One. The Buddha replied, Hear, bhikkhu, a bhikkhu has heard. Nothing is worth adhering to. The concept nothing is worth adhering to is merely his acquired knowledge. He studies abhina, directly knows, pays attention to everything. Having studied everything, he fully understands parina, everything. Having fully understood everything, he sees all signs differently. He sees the eye differently, he sees the forms differently, ... Whatever feeling arises with eye contact as condition, ... That too he sees differently. When a bhikkhu knows and sees thus, ignorance is abandoned in him and true knowledge arises. Same for the remaining 6 sense spheres, the 6 kinds of consciousness, the 6 contacts, and the 3 kinds of feeling. SIV 50. C. General inquiry. Bhikkhus, when what exists, by clinging to what, do pleasure and pain arise internally? When there is form, bhikkhus, by clinging to form, Pleasure and pain arise internally when there is feeling, perception, volitional formations, consciousness. By clinging to consciousness, pleasure and pain arise internally. What do you think, monks? Is form, feeling, etc. permanent or impermanent? Impermanent, sir. Is that which is impermanent stressful or easeful? Stressful, venerable sir. But without clinging to what is impermanent, stressful, and subject to change, could pleasure and pain arise internally? No, venerable sir. Seeing thus, the instructed noble disciple experiences disenchantment. SIII 180 to 81. There are many variations to this passage above, indicating that self-identity, personality view, Sakkaya Ditthi, and other wrong views, Miccha Ditthi, stem from attachment to and misunderstanding the five aggregates. Bhikkhus, this Dhamma has been taught by me discriminately. The four foundations of mindfulness have been taught by me discriminately. The four right efforts, the four bases for success, the five spiritual faculties, the five powers, the seven factors of enlightenment, The Noble Eightfold Path has been taught by me discriminately, because in regard to the Dhamma that has been thus taught by me discriminatively, a reflection arose in the mind of a certain bhikkhu thus: how should one know? How should one see? For the immediate destruction of the taints to occur, Here, bhikkhus, the uninstructed worldling, regards form, feeling, perception, etc. as self. That regarding bhikkhus is a formation. That formation, what is its source? What is its origin? From what is it born and produced? When the uninstructed worldling is contacted by a feeling born of ignorance, craving arises. Thence that formation is born. Thus, bhikkhus, that formation is impermanent, conditioned, dependently arisen. That craving, feeling, contact, that ignorance is impermanent, conditioned, dependently arisen. When one knows and sees this, thus, bhikkhus, the immediate destruction of the taints occurs. SIII 96 to 7. Bhikkhus, while a bhikkhu dwells mindful and clearly comprehending, diligent, ardent, and resolute, if there arises in him a pleasant feeling, he understands thus: there has arisen in me a pleasant feeling. Now, that is dependent, not independent. Dependent on what? Dependent on this very body. But this body is impermanent, conditioned, dependently arisen. So when the pleasant feeling has arisen in dependence on a body that is impermanent, conditioned, dependently arisen, how could it be permanent? He dwells contemplating impermanence in the body and in pleasant feeling. He dwells contemplating vanishing, contemplating fading away, contemplating cessation, contemplating relinquishment. As he dwells thus, the underlying tendency to lust in regard to the body and in regard to pleasant feeling is abandoned by him. While a bhikkhu dwells mindful, if there arises in him a painful feeling, he understands, The underlying tendency to aversion in regard to the body and in regard to painful feeling is abandoned by him. While a bhikkhu dwells mindful, if there arises in him a neither painful nor pleasant feeling, he understands, The underlying tendency to ignorance in regard to the body and in regard to neither painful nor pleasant feeling is abandoned by him. SIV 2:11 and 12. D. All-encompassing contemplations. The Venerable Mahakothita approached the Venerable Sariputta and said to him, Friend Sariputta, what are the things that a virtuous bhikkhu should carefully attend to? Friend Kothita, a virtuous bhikkhu should carefully attend to the five aggregates subject to clinging as impermanent, as subject to stress, as a disease, as a tumor, as a dart, as misery, as an infliction, as alien, as disintegrating, as empty, as not self, ... When friend, a virtuous bhikkhu, carefully attends to these 5 aggregates subject to clinging, it is possible that he may realize the fruit of stream entry. But friend Sariputta, what are the things that a bhikkhu who is a stream enterer should carefully attend to? Friend Kovilo, a bhikkhu who is a stream enterer should carefully attend to these 5 aggregates subject to clinging as impermanent ... as not self. When friend, a bhikkhu who is a stream enterer carefully attends to these 5 aggregates subject to clinging, it is possible that he may realize the fruit of once returning. But friend Sariputta, what are the things that a bhikkhu who is a once returner should carefully attend to? Friend Kovilo, a bhikkhu who is a once returner should carefully attend to these 5 aggregates subject to clinging as impermanent ... not self. When friend, a bhikkhu who is a once returner carefully attends thus to these 5 aggregates subject to clinging, it is possible that he may realize the fruit of non-returning. But friend Sariputta, what are the things that a bhikkhu who is a non-returner should carefully attend to? Friend Kovilo, a bhikkhu who is a non-returner should carefully attend to these 5 aggregates subject to clinging as impermanent ... and as not self. When friend, a bhikkhu who is a non-returner carefully attends thus to these 5 aggregates subject to clinging, it is possible that he may realize the fruit of arhatship. But friend Sariputta, what are the things that a bhikkhu who is an arhat should carefully attend to? Friend Kovilo, a bhikkhu who is an arhat should carefully attend to these 5 aggregates subject to clinging as impermanent ... not self. For the arhat, friend, there is nothing further that has to be done and no repetition of what has already been done. However, when these things are developed and cultivated, they lead to a pleasant dwelling in this very life, into mindfulness and clear comprehension. SIII 168-9. 8.6 Systematic Outlines of Meditation Practice. Buddha's teachings on ways to realize Nibbana usually include the contemplations of phenomena as presented earlier in this chapter. When these teachings are presented systematically, then the stages of practice are usually presented in a broad general sense. The most detailed and frequent systematic teaching outlines the holy life or way of practice of a bhikkhu from the time of ordination up to the cessation of the taints. A similar teaching given occasionally by the Buddha and his disciples is that of the 15 ways of practice, dharana, and the 3 kinds of knowledge, vijja. Alternatively, one finds a group of gradual attainments, for example, the 7 purifications or the 9 purifications. We can assume that the reason these teachings are presented in a general way is that the specific details of practice were transmitted through direct application according to the methods particular teachers used to train their students. Minor details would have differed among different teachers. These styles of practice would have been passed down until the time of the commentators who compiled and recorded some of them. The most prominent of these later texts is the Visuddhimagga. The Visuddhimagga presents a gradual course of practice, both in regards to external activities as well as to the development of wisdom. In terms of wisdom, it outlines the stages of higher knowledge, jnana. Its general framework follows the teachings on the 3 trainings, sikha, and then expands these terms of the 7 purifications, visuddhi. The gradual development of insight, vipassana jnana, found in the Visuddhimagga is an expansion from material found in the Buddhadhamma. Below is a summary of the systematic teaching found in the Visuddhimagga. First, let us look at the meaning of some important terms. Visuddhi, purity, gradual purification, qualities that purify beings, enabling a perfection of the 3-fold training, and leading to the realization of Nibbana. There are 7 stages to be discussed below. Marina, comprehensive knowledge, of which there are 3 kinds. Number 1, jnana, parina, familiarity, recognition, knowledge of specific attributes. For example, one knows cessation, vedana, and knows that it has the quality of feeling, sense impressions. One knows perception, sanya, and knows that perception has the function of designation. One knows what things are. 2, tirana, parina, investigation. One applies a deeper level of wisdom. by knowing the universal characteristics of things, that they follow natural laws and are characterized by impermanent stress and non-self. For example, one knows that feeling and perception are unstable, of the nature to change, not self. One knows how things are. And number 3, Pahana Parina, abandonment, knowledge that leads to letting go of attachment, to freedom, and to an absence of infatuation. One knows how to respond to and behave in relation to things. For example, knowing that things are impermanent, one abandons the perception of permanence, Nicca Sanya. One knows how to act. Vipassana Jnana, insight knowledge, knowledge that gives rise to insight. Knowledge that leads to a thorough understanding of phenomena and to the end of suffering, is divided into 9 kinds, see below. The different kinds of knowledge, jnana, below, that are followed by numbers in parentheses are part of the more recent formed groups of 16 kinds of knowledge. Solasa jnana, they are used to verify a person's level of attainment. Principles of practice according to the Visuddhimagga. Number 1, training in higher morality. Adi Sila Sika. Number 1, purification of morality. Sila Visuddhi, good conduct, right livelihood, ethical conduct, appropriate to one's social standing. The Visuddhimagga focuses primarily on the 4 moral standards for purity. Pura Suddhi Sila for bhikkhus, a Patimokkha Samvara Sila, restraint and strict adherence in relation to the monastic code of discipline. Indriya Samvara Sila, restraint of the sense faculties, caution while receiving sense impressions in order to prevent unskillful mental states from possessing the mind. Ajiv Par Isuddhi Sila, right livelihood. Pacha Sannisita Sila, pure conduct in regard to the 4 requisites of life, using these requisites with wise reflection, not with greed. Apart from keeping moral precepts, it's recommended to undertake, as is suitable to one's personal disposition, some of the 13 austere practices, Dhutanga, which were permitted by the Buddha in order to increase contentment, effort, and seclusion, to eliminate defilements, to purify one's moral conduct, to complement and fulfill one's other religious observances, and to support one's overall spiritual practice. Number 2, training in higher mind. Adi Chitta Sika, concentration. Number 2, purification of mind, Chitta Visuddhi, to develop the quality and ability of the mind until there is adequate concentration to act as a basis for insight. The Visuddhimagga says this extends from access concentration, Upakara Samadhi, up to attainment concentration of the 8 jhanas. It presents ways of developing concentration up to the attainment of the 5 mundane, supernormal powers, Abhinna. Number 3, training in higher wisdom, Adi Panasika. A, knowledge of conditions, Nata Parina. Recognition of the noble truth of suffering. Number 3, purification of views, Ditti Visuddhi, knowledge of the true nature of the body and mind, which removes the misapprehension of self-view. This level of purification is also called the definitive knowledge of mind and body, Nama Rupa Paricheda Jnana. Here one knows that all existing things fall under the category of either mind, Nama, or matter, Rupa, body, and one is able to distinguish through one's own experience what is mind and what is matter. For example, when seeing an object, one knows that the sense space of the eye, the light, the visual form, and the color are aspects of materiality, while the eye consciousness or the act of seeing is an aspect of mentality. Recognition of the noble truth of the origin of suffering. 4, purification of knowledge leading to the end of doubt, Kankha Vitarana Visuddhi. One accurately knows the conditionality of mind and body in line with dependent origination, the law of karma, the process of cognition, the 3 cycles vata, or any other perspective revealing that all conditioned things originate from conditioning factors and are independent. This knowledge brings to an end doubt that the 3 periods of time, the past, present, and the future, It is also called the knowledge of conditioning factors of mind and body, nama, rupa, paccaya, paraga, ha, jnana. The commentaries refer to someone with this knowledge as a little stream enterer, chula sotapanna. His or her destiny is assured as one progressing in the Buddha's teaching. And here I'm going to read this footnote 135 about the 3 cycles or vata. And that's the 3 vata. 1, round of defilements, kilesa vata. 2, round of kama vata. 3, round of results, vipaka vata. This is VISM 581. Back to the main text. B, through knowledge of the 3 characteristics, dharana, parina. Recognition of the noble truth of the path. 5, purification of knowledge regarding path and not path. Magga, jnanadasana, visuddhi. The investigation of material and immaterial phenomena, namarupa, in light of the 3 characteristics. For example, one reflects on the nature of form as being impermanent, anicca, subject to stress, dukkha, and non-self, anatta, and then reflects in a similar manner on the 4 immaterial aggregates, feeling, perception, volitional formations, and consciousness. This investigation extends to all groups of phenomena, for example, the 12 sense spheres, ayatana, the 12 factors of dependent origination, paticca samuppada, the 3 realms, bhava, the 4 jhanas, the 4 unbounded states, appamana, and the 8 concentrative attainments, samapatti, all of which fall under the category of the 5 aggregates until one discerns the arising and passing away of conditioned phenomena. This investigation gives rise to incipient insight, taruna vipassana. At this point, the 10 defilements of insight, vipassanupakilesa, may also arise, causing a person to believe falsely that he is enlightened or leading a person to attach to these mental qualities. This misunderstanding results in misdirected practice. If one possesses mindfulness and clear comprehension, however, then one is able to distinguish the correct path and avoid getting stuck in these defilements. It is at this point that one reaches the purification of knowledge regarding path and not path. There are some complicated passages in the Visuddhimagga on this level of purification. The level of insight required to generate this purification is called inductive insight, jnana vipassana. A person contemplates by using a method of investigation described in the Pali Canon. For example, one may reflect that a particular form, rupa, past, present, or future, internal or external, etc., is impermanent without exception. It is also called contemplation by groups, kalapa samasana. The knowledge arising at this stage of purification is sometimes called investigative knowledge of mind and body in light of the 3 characteristics, samasana jnana. When this investigative knowledge becomes strong and one begins to see the rising and falling of things, to see the transitory nature of things, that every object exists dependent on conditioning factors and ceases to exist when those factors are absent, the knowledge of birth and decay, udaya jnana, gradually comes about. But this knowledge is new, and at this stage is called incipient insight, taruna vipassana or taruna vipassana jnana. A person possessing this incipient insight is called a beginner of insight, arada vipassaka, and is susceptible to the defilements of insight. For example, luminosity in the mind, which tends to distract and obstruct practitioners. With proper discernment, one is able to pass beyond these defilements and complete this stage of purification. C. Knowledge resulting in liberation and the abandonment of ignorance. Pahanya parinya. C. 6. Purification of knowledge by the way of practice. Patipadanyadasana visuddhi. This refers to the highest level of insight endowed with the 9 stages of insight knowledge, vipassana jnana. beginning with the knowledge of birth and decay, and the subsequent release from the defilements of insight, up to the final stages of insight to full awakening. These are the 9 stages of insight knowledge. A. Knowledge of birth and decay. Dhyambayanupasananyana, or Udayabhayanyana. The clear seeing of the arising. Sorry, here's a side note. I haven't been mentioning these numbers with the parentheses. And the last one was after Sannyana. That was 3. And number 2 was after the knowledge of conditioning factors of mind and body. And the 1 was definitive knowledge of mind and body. Sorry about that. Okay, now back to A, knowledge of birth and decay. 4, the clear seeing of the arising and passing away of the 5 aggregates, the understanding that all things are impermanent and unable to sustain their original state, and that they are not subject to control by desire. Everything that is subject to arising is subject to cessation. In each moment of cognition, a person here discerns the origination of mind, nama dhamma, body, rupa dhamma, and the act of knowing, the one who knows, and sees the simultaneous cessation of all these qualities. This insight is powerful, balava vipassana, and dispels the perception of permanence, nicca sanya, the perception of inherent happiness, sukha sana, and the perception of self, atta sanya. B, knowledge of dissolution, bhahanganupasananyana, or bhanganyana. 5, in parentheses, when one is able to see this birth and decay in a more continuous, uninterrupted way, one begins to focus on the endpoint, on cessation. One reflects that all things are subject to dissolution. C, knowledge of the fearfulness of the appearance of conditions, bhayatupathananyana, or bhayanyana. 6, in parentheses, by contemplating dissolution to which all things are subject, one sees that all conditioned things, regardless of which realm of existence they are found, are terrifying, since they offer no safety and must come to destruction. D, knowledge of disadvantages, adinavanupasananyana, or adinyavanyana. 7, in parentheses. When one sees that all things are subject to decay and offer no safety, one reflects on the disadvantages, flaws, and inherent unsatisfactoriness of things. E, knowledge of disenchantment, nibbidhanupasananyana, or nibbidhanyana. It's 8, in parentheses. When one recognizes the disadvantages of conditioned things, one becomes disenchanted with them and does not indulge in them. F, knowledge of the desire for deliverance, mudita kamyata jnana. It's 9, in parentheses. With the arising of disenchantment, one wishes to escape from conditioned phenomena. G, reflective knowledge, foreseeing the path, patisakhanupasananyana, or patisankhahana. It's 10, in parentheses. With the wish to escape, one resumes the investigation of conditions in light of the 3 characteristics to find a way to gain freedom. H, knowledge of equanimity regarding all formations, Sankarupeka jnana. 11, in parentheses. When one investigates conditioned things, one sees their true nature and develops equanimity towards them. One is neither delighted nor averse to conditions. One sees nibbana as a way of peace, santipada. One lets go of abandonment to conditioned things and gravitates towards nibbana. This knowledge is known as pinnacle insight, sikkhapada vipassana, because it reaches the highest goal, or generative insight, Nagamini Mina Vipassana, because it links a person to the path, which is the way out of attachment. I, compatible knowledge, for realizing the truth, sakanulomika jnana or anuloma jnana. 12 in parentheses. When one has developed equanimity and one is intent on nibbana, knowledge favorable to realizing the truth follows. This is the final stage of insight knowledge. Following the compatible knowledge is lineage knowledge, gotrabhunyana, 13 in parentheses, knowledge that marks the transition point between an ordinary person and an awakened person. From this point, path knowledge, magga jnana, arises, which leads to awakening. Lineage knowledge does not fall into either stage of purity, neither the previous stage of purification of knowledge by the way of practice, nor the following stage of purity of knowledge and vision, but rather it falls in between. However, it is still considered to be a distinct level of insight, since it is part of the insight process. 7. Purity of knowledge and vision, jnana dasana visuddhi. This purification follows from lineage knowledge and is equivalent to path knowledge, magga jnana. 14. The arising of a particular path knowledge is followed by a corresponding fruit knowledge, phala jnana. 15 in parentheses. Depending on the level of awakening as stated above, it is this purity that enables a person to be enlightened and reach the highest goal of Buddhism. With realization through path and fruit knowledge, reviewing knowledge, pacha vihana jnana, 16 in parentheses, arises, which reflects on path and fruit, on abandoned defilements, on remaining defilements, and on nibbana. Arhats do not reflect on remaining defilements. This reviewing knowledge concludes the process of realizing a particular stage of enlightenment. 8.7, Appendix 1, Jhana. The jhanas will be discussed in more detail in the section on right concentration, but since they have been mentioned here, I will provide some basic information. The 4 jhanas, the standard group found in the suttas, are the 4 fine material jhanas. In the Abhidhamma, these 4 jhanas are expanded into 5 jhanas. The 5th jhana is equivalent to the 4th in the original quartet. The quartet is called jhana katukanaya. The quintet, jhana panchakanaya. Jhana, focused attention, meditation, is a state of heightened concentration of the mind being one-pointed on an object. There are different levels of this concentration based on refinement, depth, and strength. These levels can be determined by the mental qualities present during these periods of concentration. These qualities are applied thought, vitakka, sustained thought, vikara, bliss, piti, joy, sukha, equanimity, upekkha, and one-pointedness, ekaggata. The 4 fine material jhanas have the following qualities. Number 1, first jhana, applied thought, sustained thought, bliss, joy, and one-pointedness. 2, second jhana, bliss, joy, and one-pointedness. Third jhana, joy and one-pointedness. 4th jhana, equanimity and one-pointedness. The jhanas higher than these are the formless jhanas, arupa jhana. The formless jhanas have the qualities of equanimity and one-pointedness, but are increasingly more refined depending on the objects of concentration. For details, see the section on vimokkha, levels 4 to 7. The term jhana can be used in a broad sense for focus, examination, or pondering. Sometimes it is used in a negative sense for an activity criticized by the Buddha. For example, it can be a way of harboring the 5 hindrances: lust, malice, despondency, agitation, and doubt in the heart. To allow these hindrances to gnaw away at the mind in a state of brooding is also called jhana. Jhana is also used in the verb form for animals. For example, an owl staring at a mouse or a fox hunting for fish. Sometimes it is used in the context of vipassana meditation, meaning investigation or reflection. The commentaries occasionally divide jhana into 2 types: the focusing of an object in samatha meditation, aramana nupanijjhana equals 8 jhana samapatti, and the reflection giving rise to insight into the 3 characteristics, lakkhana nupanijjhana equals vipassana. Even path and fruit can be called jhana, since these are referred to as eradicating defilements and focusing on the unsubstantiality of Nibbana. 8.8 Appendix 2, is it possible to develop insight or to become enlightened in jhana? There's much debate as to whether it's possible to develop insight or to apply wise reflection while in jhana. Those people who claim it is not possible tend to refer to the factors of jhana. In the first jhana, a person possesses applied and sustained thought, vitakka vichara, while in higher jhanas, a person has at most bliss, joy, and one-pointedness. So in this case, how can someone be engaged in thinking or reflection? In fact, these factors of jhana are simply used as criteria for determining whether one has attained jhana and for determining the level of jhana. It is not implied that these are the only mental qualities present in jhana. In fact, the mind is endowed with many qualities while in jhana, as is verified in the suttas and in the older text of the Abhidhamma. For example, MIII 26-7 describes the mental qualities associated with every level of jhana, from the first jhana to the sphere of nothingness, including enthusiasm, chanda, determination, adhimokkha, energy, virya, mindfulness, sati, equanimity, upekkha, and attention, manasikara. Similarly, DHS 31 and 75 describe the numerous qualities present at each level of jhana, especially in transcendent jhana, including the 5 spiritual faculties of faith, energy, mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom, the complete set of 8 factors of the Noble Path, and both tranquility and insight. Some later commentaries expand upon the passage at PSAI 132, VSM 148-9, and NDAI 133, and make it clear that concentration and wisdom act in unison in the mind of jhana, chitta. The reason that applied and sustained thought are absent in higher jhana is because the mind is firmly established and greatly empowered. It is not necessary to turn attention vitakka to objects in the mind or to sustain attention vicara on these objects. The reflection present in the mind excels these modes of attention. The Visuddhimagga describes the development of insight in this way. One whose vehicle is serenity should emerge from any fine material or immaterial jhana except the base of neither perception or non-perception, and he should discern, according to characteristic, function, etc., the jhana factors consisting of applied thought, etc. VISM 557. One can interpret the phrase should emerge ... and he should discern as describing one particular mode of practice, since the sub-commentaries of this text explain. The term one whose vehicle is serenity here is a name for one who abides in jhana, or abides in access concentration, and is practicing insight meditation. VSMT, and then it's a long Pali name, comma, another long Pali name. There is disagreement among the sub-commentaries as to whether it is possible to develop insight in jhana, or whether one must first exit from jhana. Apart from AAIV 195 and the VSMT, the only other passage giving evidence of developing insight while in jhana is DAII 512, which refers to arhats who are liberated by wisdom, panya vimutta. There are 5 kinds of person liberated by wisdom: the pure insight practitioner, and those who dwell in one of the 4 jhanas, for example, the first jhana, and realize arhatship. All remaining passages describe first exiting from jhana, especially when referring directly to the development of insight. The descriptions are similar. For example, having dwelled in and emerged from jhana, one reflects on the factors of jhana and associated qualities. Having dwelled in jhana and emerged from this attainment, one investigates all conditioned phenomena. Having emerged from the attainment, one reflects on the factors of attainment. Having emerged from jhana, one reflects on the qualities of jhana. VINAII 430-433. Taking these passages as a whole, the commentarial opinion is generally that if one enters jhana, one must first exit in order to develop insight. Since there is no clear explanation in the commentaries and sub-commentaries, it is difficult to definitively settle the various arguments, but it is possible to strike some sort of compromise by connecting evidence from different sources. The format for developing insight by emerging from jhana and contemplating conditioned phenomena comes from secondary text of the Tipitaka. A clear example is the interpretation of this passage in the Sutta Nipata. When a person knows the factors giving rise to the sphere of nothingness and knows the binding power of delight, then he clearly discerns the sphere of nothingness. SN 216. The Chula Nidisa, a secondary text, explains the phrase, he clearly discerns the sphere of nothingness as he enters and emerges from the sphere of nothingness and discerns the mind and mental constituents arising in that sphere of nothingness as impermanent, subject to stress, etc. The commentaries of both texts offer a similar explanation. These explanations from secondary texts and sub-commentaries all follow the outline of Abhidhamma. The Abhidhamma presents a detailed analysis of things and breaks the mind down into separate mind moments, describing the activity of mind in relation to other factors, for example, the involvement with sense impressions. The Abhidhamma claims it is not possible to develop insight in jhana because at the moment of concentrative attainment, the mind is one-pointed on the object of awareness, aramana, pertaining to jhana. The objects of awareness involved in insight practice are separate, and therefore one cannot develop insight during the same mind moment of jhana. One must first take attention away from the object of awareness in jhana and focus on another object, which means emerging from jhana. This is not a big step. It simply requires an adjustment or interruption in the stream of awareness of one-pointedness and entering into subliminal consciousness, bhavanga, which is the equivalent to exiting jhana. Having emerged from jhana, the mind immediately resumes the stability of attainment concentration, apana samadhi, due to the strength of mind developed in jhana. People may misunderstand that exiting jhana implies returning to a state of mental disturbance or confusion. A person then uses attainment concentration to develop insight by contemplating the factors present at the level of jhana from which he has just emerged and seeing them in light of the three characteristics. These factors become the objects of insight. To speak in a comprehensive way, a person contemplates aspects of jhana, Buddhadhamma, things associated with jhana, Buddhaghosacariya, aspects of attainment, Buddhaghosacariya, things associated with attainment, Payutto, the mind and mental constituents arising in jhana, or even all conditioned phenomena. The concentration of jhana, and even more so of the higher psychic attainments, makes the practice of insight more effective and proficient, which is the special value of insight preceded by tranquility meditation. The commentaries use the expression developing insight with jhana as a basis for this process of applying the strength of concentration derived from jhana to contemplate conditioned reality. Jhana here is called jhana acting as foundation for insight, and various terms are used according to the level of jhana reached. For example, using first jhana as foundation, using second jhana as foundation, using the sphere of nothingness as foundation, insight with first jhana as a basis, insight with second jhana as a basis, insight with formless jhana as a basis, etc. The higher level of jhana, the deeper and stronger the concentration applied for insight. The wisdom gleaned from this insight practice can also be classified according to the level of jhana. For example, the insight wisdom of first jhana or the first jhana insight wisdom. The level of path attainment magam is dependent on the level of jhana used as the basis, except in the cases of the sphere of neither perception or non-perception and the extinction of perception and feeling. On the relationship between magga and jhana, see a divergent opinion at e.g., for example, DHSA 228 and VSM 666-7, which was referred to earlier. We can see from the above that the teachings on developing insight while in jhana and those on first exiting jhana before practicing insight are not contradictory. The first can be called the teaching from the suttas and is more general. In this teaching, the word jhana refers to both the actual state of jhana and to the stability of mind generated by the power of jhana. The expression developing insight in jhana refers to entering jhana and then using the strength of jhana to practice insight. The second can be called the teaching of the Abhidhamma and is more specific. Here the definition of jhana is restricted to the process during which the mind is one-pointed and focused on the meditation object, say the mental image, nimitta, of breathing or of a kasina object. The Abhidhamma explains that the mind in jhana is one-pointed on the object of awareness throughout. When the mind begins to apply wisdom for contemplation, the focus of awareness must move from that original object. The Abhidhamma distinguishes the state of mind strengthened by jhana as a separate process, one of releasing the object of tranquility and exiting jhana, although they grant that the mind is still exceptionally concentrated. The practitioner uses this strength of mind to develop insight and turns to the jhana just exited along with its attributes. For example, applied attention, vitakka, sustained attention, vikara, bliss, piti, happiness, sukha, enthusiasm, chanda, and energy, virya, as the objects of contemplation. This change of focus results in exiting jhana and entering the vital continuum, vivanga. From this point on, one begins a new stage of meditation, of insight meditation, vipassana. By making this distinction, a new term was necessary to describe this process, since despite exiting jhana, the mind does not revert back to the state preceding jhana. The commentaries coined the expression using jhana as a foundation. They also refer to the principle of the vital continuum, bhavanga citta, to define the exit or break from the state of jhana. From this evidence, we can conclude that the general statement developing insight in jhana is equivalent to the more specific statements found in the commentaries. Having entered jhana, one exits and contemplates conditioned phenomena. Exiting the foundational jhana, one contemplates phenomena. Establishing the jhana as basis, one develops insight. Having attained jhana, one develops insight with jhana as basis. And exiting concentrative attainment, one practices insight with a firmly established mind. The essential message of the sutta teachings and the Abhidhamma teachings is the same: to apply the power of concentration generated in jhana, and thus to foster the optimum conditions for wisdom to discern the truth. By entering jhana, the mind is prepared for the next stage of contemplation, vipassana. Because of the reliance on jhana, the commentaries call this process insight with jhana as basis, or insight with jhana as a cause. This explanation is consonant, consonant, with the frequently mentioned sutta passage, when my concentrated mind was thus purified, bright, malleable, wieldy, steady, I directed it to knowledge, With jhana, a person thus prepares the mind for engagement. This state of mind is called resolute, abhiniharahama, and it leads to ever loftier attainments. Based on the sutta passages, the commentators attribute 9 qualities to this state of mind. The mind is 1, composed, samahita; 2, pure, parisuddha; 3, bright, pariyodhata; clear and open, anagana; 5, free of blemish, vigatupakilesa; 6, malleable, mudhuta; 7, fit for work, kamanaya; 8, steadfast, thita; 9, imperturbable, anijapata. In any case, Someone who attains jhana but does not use it as basis for insight will only develop insight with the assistance of access, upakara, or momentary kanika concentration. This will be similar to someone who develops insight without having ever attained jhana. 8.9, Appendix 3. Is it possible to develop insight while dwelling in the realm of neither perception nor non-perception? The states of neither perception nor non-perception and the extinction of perception and feeling are classified as attainments in which one reaps the fruit of meditation practice. They are not used directly for the application of insight. The lower concentrative attainments from the realm of nothingness and below can be used for both experiencing the fruit of practice and for applying insight and reflection. These lower attainments are still clearly accompanied by perception and other mental qualities, as testified by the description of the realm of nothingness as the pinnacle of perceptual attainment. The realm of nothingness is the highest attainment still accompanied by perception. It is called the peak of perception, sanaga, because it is the highest mundane attainment that can be used for insight practice. Neither perception or non-perception is exceptionally refined and is therefore referred to as possessing neither perception nor non-perception. Another name for this state is the attainment of residual formations, because the conditioned attributes of this state are of the most subtle nature. In most cases, these attributes are insufficiently distinct or coarse for insight practice. Let alone developing insight while abiding in the state, it is almost impossible to contemplate the attributes even after exiting. It requires at least the level of wisdom of someone like Venerable Sariputta, and even he was only able to contemplate them as a group, kalapa vipassana. Only Buddhas are capable of discerning and analyzing each individual attribute, anupada vipassana. The scriptures refer to the 8 concentrative attainments, samapatti, as basis for insight, basis for the fruits of attainment, and collectively as basis for the attainment of cessation. This is not the case with the realm of neither perception nor non-perception, which does not function in an active way. This is seen clearly in relation to the attainment of cessation, for which the active attainment is the realm of nothingness. Although the realm of neither perception or non-perception is an essential intermediate stage, it acts more as a corridor. Even if one has attained the gradual stages of concentration up to the realm of neither perception nor non-perception, one will be unable to enter the attainment of cessation if one has not prepared the mind adequately between the realm of nothingness and the realm of neither perception nor non-perception. And one will have to return to the realm of nothingness to fulfill this prerequisite. From this, we may conclude that the realm of neither perception nor non-perception is limited to experiencing the fruits of this particular attainment. When exiting this realm, one exits definitively. No mind states at this level of consciousness remain. In regard to insight practice, unlike other attainments of jhana, one does not exit the realm of neither perception or non-perception to shift one's focus of attention, but rather one drops to a lower level of attainment, the realm of nothingness. This is an exit from the attainment in all respects. As a preliminary to insight practice, the suttas therefore use the expression exiting the realm of neither perception or non-perception. There is no specific mention of using the realm of neither perception or non-perception as a basis for insight. One can still use the expression basis for insight as the mind is highly refined after exiting from the realm of neither perception or non-perception, although technically the mind applies access concentration associated with the realm of nothingness. Note also that the concentration in all the formless jhanas is of the level of the 4th jhana. It is just increasingly more refined and removed from mental disturbances. Bhikkhu The extinction of perception and feeling, sanya vedayita naroda, is clearly confined to experiencing the fruits of this particular attainment. It is not possible to develop insight while in this state, since no perception or feelings, along with other aggregates, khandha, accompany this attainment that can be a focus for contemplation. A unique characteristic of this state is that it is the only attainment, samapatti, that is not classified as concentration, samadhi, a fact that corroborates the assertion that one must first exit this state to develop insight. When exiting this state to practice insight, one ought to abide in the highest level of concentration that can be used for this activity, that is, the state of nothingness. One can use any level of concentration, including momentary concentration, khanika samadhi, which is not even a level of jhana, since someone who has reached a higher level of attainment has mastery over lower levels. In any case, although the extinction of perception and feeling cannot directly be used to develop insight, accessing this attainment greatly refines the mind and has tremendous benefits for spiritual practice. 8.10 Appendix 4 The Mind Moment at Realization of Path and Fruit. Several commentarial passages address the teaching that at the moment of realizing arhatship, the mind must reach attainment concentration. Apana samadhi equals jhana, even for someone who has never previously entered jhana. Following the model of the Abhidhamma, these passages outline the sequence of the mind's activity at the moment of realizing path and fruit for one who uses insight as a vehicle, vipassana yanika. This outline can be illustrated thus. The numbers in parentheses refer to distinct mind moments. Sangharupeka jnana onto Bhavanga, onto Mano Varajana, mental apprehension, onto 1, Parikama, preparation, onto 2, Upakara, approach, onto 3, Anuloma, adaptation, 4, Gotrabhu, maturation, onto 5, Maggacitta, onto 6 to 7, Phalaccitta, onto Bhavanga. Alternatively, Sankarupeka jnana onto Bhavanga, onto Mano Varvajana, onto 1, Upakara, onto 2, Anuloma, onto 3, Gotrabhu, onto 4, Maggacitta, onto 5, 6, 7, Phalaccitta, onto Bhavanga. The process following from the first Bhavanga and including maturation is called sense sphere impulsion, kama, vakara, javana. As a pair, Magga and Phalaccitta are called transcendent attainment impulsion, lokutara apanajavana. Here's a broad outline of the sequence of the mind's activity for one who uses tranquility as a vehicle, samatha yanika. Bhavanga, onto Nana Vitti, consciousness, process of knowledge, onto Bhavanga, onto Vipassana Vitti, consciousness, process of insight, onto Bhavanga, onto Magga Vitti, onto Bhavanga. In any case, the knowledge and clear insight arising at the moment of awakening, which produces a profound transformation by dispelling mental defilement and altering personality, must be an experience that permeates the entire heart and mind. So just a note for me on that, when I say onto, that's an arrow that points to the right, denoting the next step. So 8.11 Appendix 5, non-returners after death. The Abhidhamma states that after death, non-returners reappear in the pure abodes, Suddhavasa, and classifies the pure abodes as a realm of the fourth jhana. The Abhidhamma-vini, however, explains that for non-returners will appear in a realm corresponding to their particular level of jhana. The only fixed rule is that the pure abodes are exclusively for non-returners. This raises the doubt as to how the non-returners, for example, those mentioned in the Visuddhimagga and the Visuddhimagga Mahatthika, who are pure insight practitioners and do not attain the fourth jhana, can appear in the pure abodes. The Abhidhamma Matha Vibhavini responds to this doubt by saying, although those non-returners are pure insight practitioners, at the time of death they invariably generate the attainments, samapatti, because they have developed concentration completely. In any case, suttas in the Pali Canon confirm that non-returners who have reached any of the first four jhanas all reappear in the pure abodes. Here too, commentaries explain that the non-returners attain the fourth jhana before reappearing in the pure abodes. 8.12, Appendix 6, Attainment of Cessation, Nirodha Samapatti. Do not be confused by the passage in the Visuddhimagga referring to those monks who are about to enter attainment of cessation, Nirodha Samapatti, that states, "Let me dwell in bliss by being without consciousness here and now and reaching the cessation, Nirodha Samapatti, that is similar to Nibbana." VISM 705. The Visuddhimagga Mahatthika explains this passage as attainment of cessation is similar to attaining Nibbana with no remaining fuel. Anupadi Sisa Nibbana. A person in this attainment has no perception and feeling and resembles someone who has died. The above passage does not imply that attainment of cessation is the same as Nibbana. Rather, one relies on Nirodha Samapatti in order to realize Nibbana. It is one means of coming into contact with Nibbana. It is normal for awakened people to regularly be in contact with Nibbana. While abiding in fruition attainment, Phala Samapatti, noble beings of all stages fix Nibbana as their object of awareness. A passage in the Anguttara Nikaya states, a monk attains the extinction of perception and feeling, and by seeing with wisdom, the taints are destroyed. This is visible Nibbana, Buddhadhamma Nibbana directly, Nippariyaya. AIV 454-5. Here, extinction of perception and feeling, Sanya Vedayita Nirodha, is not Nibbana, but a basis for which to realize Nibbana. Nibbana is equal to the destruction of the taints. Additional suttas state that the 8 vimokkha, note that Nirodha Samapatti is a kind of vimokkha, are to be realized with the body, while the end of the asava, a definition of Nibbana, is to be realized by wisdom. A passage in the Samyutta Nikaya states, for one who has attained the cessation of perception and feeling have ceased. For a bhikkhu whose taints are destroyed, lust, hatred, and delusion have ceased. SIV 217. Note also that the Buddha's parinibbana, he entered the progressive abidings of concentrative attainment, Anupabhavihara Samapatti, from the first jhana up to the extinction of perception and feeling, but he did not enter final Nibbana in Nirodha Samapatti. He gradually returned to the first jhana and then entered successive jhanas up to the fourth jhana, at which point he attained final Nibbana. End of chapter 8.